Chapter 270. Return. Zhuowen's gaze was extremely calm as he revealed his objective, causing Qiu Qiu to look at him with a strange expression. You called me over just to bring you to Rotten Armor City? Is it that simple? Qiu Qiu's face twitched as his tone became rather strange. My grandfather is most anxious to know about my aunt's whereabouts. Since we have already found out, I must inform him as soon as possible. He has been waiting for this for 10 years and I don't want him to wait too long. Moreover, I will feel uneasy if my aunt's belongings are not properly taken care of. Zhuowen's gaze was rather dim as he spoke indifferently. Little friend Zhuowen is indeed a man of character. However, I must remind you that since you have crushed the Jade Talisman, your only chance to ask for my help has been used up. Qiu Qiu's gaze flickered as he spoke indifferently. Junior understands. Senior, please set off quickly. Junior does not have much time. Zhuowen nodded as he spoke seriously. Qiu Qiu was never one to drag things out. The only thing he could do was nod his head. With a wave of his right hand, powerful yuan power was applied to the feet of the two. Soon after, Zhuowen followed Qiu Qiu and floated in the air. With a swoosh, the two of them transformed into two streaks of light and disappeared from the courtyard. Sigh. I am finding it harder and harder to see through this little fellow Zhuowen. He has only been in Broken Rock City for a few days and he already knows such a powerful Ultimate Emperor stage expert. What is even more unbelievable is that this expert actually agreed to help Zhuowen. Grandmaster Kuraki could not help but mutter to himself as he gazed at the streaks of light that disappeared into the horizon. I hope that this little fellow can hurry up and make it in time for the Arcana ceremony. I am really looking forward to his performance. Swoosh! Swoosh! High up in the sky, two figures flashed past like shooting stars, causing the surrounding air to emit a tearing sound. A trace of excitement flashed across Zhuowen's face as he gazed at the ground below that had almost turned into a black dot. Once a cultivator reached the Ultimate Emperor stage, they would be able to walk through the air as though it was flat ground. A single step would cover a distance of 10,000 miles. It could be said that they had truly reached the realm of freedom. Senior Qiu. With our current speed, how long will it take to reach Rotten Armor City? Zhuowen suddenly turned to Qiu Qiu and asked. About 2 days. My speed is much faster than the average Ultimate Emperor realm expert. 2 days should be the best estimate. Qiu Qiu smiled faintly. 2 days. It seems that time is rather tight. Zhuowen mumbled in a low voice. There was a trace of worry on his face. He didn't know if he would be able to make it in time for the Arcana ceremony. 2 days later, Rotten Armor City was still bustling with activity as usual. There was an endless stream of people on the streets, and many of the markets were established. These markets basically belonged to the Zhuo family, the #1 power in Rotten Armor City. The strength of the Zhuo family was already deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people. Compared to the city lord's mansion, some cultivators were even more afraid of the Zhuo family. Rumors of Zhuowen slaughtering 1,000 cultivators by himself outside the primordial cave dwelling had already spread like wildfire in Rotten Armor City. It had even become a household name. Everyone knew that the Zhuo family had a ruthless person called Zhuowen. Zhuowen's legendary battles were also deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people. Everyone couldn't help but fear the Zhuo family. Within the city lord's mansion, Gu Tian was going through some documents. At this moment, he suddenly raised his head to look at the sky. There was a trace of shock in his eyes. What a powerful aura! This aura, could it be an Ultimate Emperor realm expert? Crack! A crisp sound immediately rang out. Due to using too much force, the brush in Gu Tian's hand was actually broken. However, he still didn't feel anything. I have to go out and take a look. It's not a good thing for an expert to descend upon our small city. Gu Tian recalled the scene of the battle between Aoki and Ba Shui when they descended upon Rotten Armor City. That kind of power had almost destroyed Rotten Armor City. Swoosh! In an instant, Gu Tian disappeared. In a short while, he arrived at the top of the city gates. His gaze was grave as he looked at the horizon in the distance. There, two black figures were rapidly rushing over. Big brother. What's going on? I felt an extremely powerful pulse of energy earlier. Could it be? A middle-aged man in long black robes also arrived beside Gu Yutian. He raised his head and stared at the horizon in a rather serious manner. This middle-aged man was the Vice City Lord of Rattan Armor City. He was also Gu Yutian's younger brother, Gu Lai. Speaking of which, Gu Lai had some conflicts with Zhuowen in the past. However, with Zhuowen's rapid rise, Gu Lai no longer dared to oppose Zhuowen. He even faintly felt regret in his heart. They should be Ultimate Emperor realm experts. I wonder why these two sirs have come to our Rattan Armor City. I hope there won't be a huge battle like last time. Grandmaster Tsangmu isn't in Rattan Armor City right now. If there really is a battle between Ultimate Emperor realm experts, I'm afraid that our Rattan Armor City will really be finished. Gu Yutian's face was filled with a bitter smile. It was very easy for experts to overlook a low-level city like their Rattan Armor City. To them, a low-level city was an ant-like existence. Stomping an ant to death was no big deal. Gu Lai's face also darkened when he heard this. His eyes were filled with helplessness. This was the tragedy of a small city like theirs. In the vast Muqin County, there were just too many small cities like theirs. Basically, they were living precarious lives. If our Rattan Armor City also had an Ultimate Emperor realm expert guarding it, we probably wouldn't be overlooked by other experts. We might even be able to become a medium-level city because of this. At that time, we would be able to obtain even more territory and soldiers, Gu Lai continued with a bitter smile. Gu Yutian suddenly thought of Zhuowen's figure and his eyes immediately filled with envy. If there's anyone in our Rattan Armor City who can reach the Ultimate Emperor realm, then it would only be Zhuowen from the Zhuo family. That little fellow's talent is just too terrifying. Even now, I'm a little envious of Zhuo Xiangding's good fortune to actually have such a good grandson. Gu Lai also nodded in agreement. Even though he didn't have much of a good impression of Zhuowen, he couldn't help but admire the latter's great talent and strength. They're here. These two sirs should have extraordinary origins. We can't be careless in the slightest. Swoosh! Swoosh! Two whooshing sounds suddenly rang out and two figures suddenly appeared on the city gate. At the same time, a suffocating aura constantly radiated from their bodies, causing Gu Yutian and Gu Lai to lower their heads involuntarily. They didn't dare to look directly at the two people who had appeared on the city gate. This lowly one is Gu Yutian, the city lord of Rattan Armor City. Greetings to the two sirs. This lowly one is Gu Lai, the vice city lord. Greetings to the two sirs. Gu Yutian and Gu Lai both stepped forward and knelt on one knee. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to casually look at the two people. They only cupped their hands together in an extremely respectful and humble manner. City Lord, Vice City Lord, there's no need for the two of you to be so courteous. Quickly rise. A youthful voice abruptly rang out, causing Gu Yutian and Gu Lai to be stunned. They discovered that this voice actually gave them an extremely familiar feeling. Could it be? The two of them abruptly raised their heads and immediately saw a slender young man smiling at them. Zhuowen? Are you really Zhuowen? Did you give off the aura of an Ultimate Emperor realm expert earlier? You've reached the Ultimate Emperor realm. The two of them could not help but cry out. When they recalled that the extremely powerful aura from afar had come from the young man before them, they could not help but tremble. Shock filled their faces. Wasn't Zhuowen just at the Earth King realm a month ago? It had only been a month since they last saw each other, yet the young man had already reached the Ultimate Emperor realm after returning from Broken Rock City. Wasn't this a little too unbelievable? You've misunderstood. Take a closer look. I'm not an Ultimate Emperor realm expert, but Senior Cho beside me is a bona fide Ultimate Emperor realm expert with 4 wheels. Zhuowen pointed at Cho with a smile. Cho had originally been an Ultimate Emperor realm expert with 3 wheels. Ever since Zhuowen expelled the extreme coldness from his body, he had gained some comprehension and directly broken through to the ultimate emperor realm with 4 wheels. After hearing Zhuo Wen's denial, Gu Yuetian and Gu Lai had already heaved a sigh of relief. However, when Zhuo Wen introduced Zhou Chou, who was beside him, as an ultimate 4-wheel emperor, the two of them instantly felt a knot in their hearts. "Greetings, sir." The two of them trembled and hurriedly clasped their hands towards Zhou Chou. They were extremely respectful, but their hearts were in chaos. An ultimate emperor realm expert with 4 wheels. An expert like that was a peak expert in the entire Muqin County. His strength was probably even greater than the city lords of some super cities. They had never thought that he would come to their tiny vine armor city today. What was even more unbelievable was that this expert seemed to have come with Zhuowen. Since when had Zhuowen's reputation become so great that he could even invite an expert like that? With this thought in mind, the two of them immediately looked at Zhuowen with a complicated and strange gaze. Compared to Gu Yutian and Gu Lai, who were trembling with fear, Zhou Chou was frowning. He did not care about Gu Yutian and Gu Lai at all. After all, one of them was at the initial Earth King stage, while the other was only at the Human King stage. Their strength was not even worth mentioning to him. What really made him frown was that the Vine Armor City that Zhuowen had mentioned was only a low-level city. Originally, he had thought that the faction behind the city that could nurture such a heaven-defying monster like Zhuowen would definitely be extremely terrifying. Perhaps the city he came from was one of the strongest super cities in Muqin County. However, he had never thought that the Vine Armor City that Zhuowen had mentioned was only a low-level city. To put it bluntly, Zhou Chou only needed to wave his hand to completely destroy a city like that. This kid actually came from a low-level city, but his strength and talent have already left many geniuses in the dust. To be able to reach such a level in a low-level city that is lacking in resources, this kid can no longer be described as a monster. Zhou Chou glanced at Zhuowen beside him. Although his face was as calm as water, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. If Zhuowen had come from a great faction in a super city, Zhou Chou would not be surprised if he could reach such a level at the age of 17 or 18. After all, he had lived for an extremely long time and had seen all kinds of geniuses. Chapter 271. My family, Zhuowen. May I know why you've brought this lord to Rotten Armor City? Gu Yuetian stole a glance at Zhou Chou as he spoke rather cautiously. He did not dare to show the slightest disrespect towards an ultimate emperor realm expert. I'm just here to deliver something to grandfather. Due to time constraints, I asked Senior Zhou Chou to personally bring me back. After all, Senior Zhou Chou can travel thousands of miles in a single step. His speed is much faster. Zhuowen smiled faintly as he replied in a somewhat absent-minded manner. When Gu Yutian and Gu Lai heard this, the surprise in their eyes grew even more intense. Zhuowen had returned this time just to deliver a single item, and it was actually enough for an ultimate emperor stage expert to personally bring him back. Wasn't this a little too much? City lords, I will only be staying in Rotten Armor City for a day. After a day, I will return to Broken Rock City. Therefore, I will be returning to the Zhuo family first. Zhuowen cupped his hands slightly and nodded at Zhou Chou beside him. The two of them instantly disappeared from the city gates. As they watched the two of them disappear, the shock on Gu Yutian and Gu Lai's faces didn't fade for a long time. In the end, Gu Yutian laughed bitterly and said, I'm finding it harder and harder to see through Zhuowen. He's only been in Broken Rock City for a short while, but he's already acquainted himself with such a powerful ultimate emperor stage expert. Moreover, this expert was even willing to personally escort him to Rotten Armor City. Gu Lai's face was also filled with bitterness. The complicated look in his eyes grew even more intense. The Zhuo family's martial arts practice field was already packed with people. Many young and tender youths were diligently practicing their basic moves under Zhuo Beiqian's supervision. The sound of robes rustling against the air was rather pleasing to the ears in the entire martial arts practice field. Zhuo Beiqian's gaze was stern as he scanned the youths in the martial arts practice field. If there was any movement that was wrong, he would immediately correct it. At this moment, Zhuo Beiqian's eyes narrowed. He lifted his head to look at the distant horizon. He could feel an extremely powerful aura heading straight for the Zhua family. Whoosh! From the depths of the Zhua family, a burly figure suddenly shot out and arrived at the martial arts practice field in an instant. When this figure appeared in the martial arts practice field, the martial arts practice field instantly became somewhat quiet. Subsequently, those immature youths who were practicing their moves looked at the figure that had suddenly appeared with reverence in their eyes. Greetings, Patriarch. It's good to live at home. The youths cupped their hands and shouted in unison, and their voices seemed to be rather loud and clear in the martial practice grounds. This figure was the head of the Zhua family, Zhua Xiangding. At this time, Zhua Xiangding's face was very serious. He looked up at the sky and said seriously, "Boss. You also sensed that powerful aura, right?" Zhua Baitian's expression was equally solemn as he nodded, I just don't know if the owner of this aura is a friend or a foe. If it's a friend, then it's fine. If it's an enemy, then I'm afraid our Zhua family will be in a very bad situation. Whether it's a friend or a foe, we'll naturally find out in a moment. Zhua Xiangding narrowed his eyes and said seriously. Seeing that Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian were both silent and instead looking up at the sky, the youths in the martial arts practice field naturally couldn't hide the curiosity in their hearts and looked up at the sky. They were very curious as to what exactly Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian were looking at. Very soon, two figures immediately appeared in the empty sky. The two figures stood in the air and silently hovered at a height of 10,000 kilometers above the martial arts practice ground, stepping on the void as if it's flat ground. This can only be done by those whose strength is above the Ultimate Emperor realm. These two are actually Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouses. Looking at the two figures that suddenly stopped in the sky above them, Zhua Xiangding's face twitched and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Even Zhua Baitian, who was beside him, couldn't remain calm. His body couldn't help but tremble as a look of horror appeared on his face. Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouses weren't existences that their Zhua family or even Rattan Armor City could contend against. The youths in the martial arts practice field also noticed the abnormal reactions of Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian. A trace of doubt appeared on their young faces. Although these youths were still a little confused, they subconsciously sensed that the two figures that suddenly appeared in the sky above them were definitely powerhouses. Whoosh! The two figures in the sky suddenly moved and instantly landed on the martial arts practice field. Immediately, a slender youth of 17 or 18 and a middle-aged man with a cold expression appeared beside him. When Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian's gazes fell on the youth, they couldn't help but be startled. Then, with wild joy on their faces, they stepped forward and gave the youth a bear hug. "Zhuowen. My good grandson, I didn't expect you to return so early. I thought you would stay in Broken Rock City for a while." Zhua Xiangding's face was filled with an excited smile as he couldn't help but laugh. Zhua Baitian's face was also filled with a gratified smile. They didn't know when, but they had already regarded the youth in front of them as the backbone of the Zhua family. As long as the youth in front of them existed, their Zhua family would prosper forever. "Grandfather. Uncle. This senior is called Cho. He is an Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouse. He is the one who brought me to Rattan Armor City this time." After the bear hug, Zhuowen pointed at Cho and introduced him respectfully. Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian were just about to greet Cho when they suddenly heard the words Ultimate Emperor realm. Their bodies suddenly trembled as they turned to Zhuowen and exclaimed, "Zhuowen, what did you say? This lord is an Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouse? Do I not look like one?" Cho glared as he replied coldly. No. This lord, we didn't mean that. We just overreacted because we were too shocked." Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian almost knelt down as they wiped away their cold sweat. An Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouse was not someone to be trifled with. Zhuowen, however, frowned slightly and said in a rather cold tone, "Senior Cho, these two are my family. I hope you can show them some respect." Zhuowen's somewhat disrespectful words made Zhua Xiangding and Zhua Baitian's hearts clench. This was an ultimate emperor realm powerhouse, a peak existence even in the Qing Xian Empire. How could Zhuowen dare to speak to him in such a manner? Zhuo Xiangding had a bad feeling in his heart and hurriedly said with a smile, "This lord, please don't take offense. Zhuowen is young and doesn't know how to speak well. Please don't take it to heart." Qiu Chao's face was as calm as still water. His eyes flickered and he suddenly smiled. This old man was indeed a little rude just now. Since the two of you are young friend Zhuowen's elders, then you are naturally my friends. If it wasn't for young friend Zhuowen, I'm afraid this old man's life would really be in danger. Please forgive me for my rudeness just now. Zhuowen was also a little surprised by Qiu Chao's attitude. He originally thought that Qiu Chou would be angry, but he didn't expect him to actually apologize. It seemed like Qiu Chou valued kindness very much. When Zhuo Xiangding and Zhuo Baitian heard this, they were first stunned and then stunned for a moment. They also didn't expect Qiu Chou to actually apologize to them. An ultimate emperor realm powerhouse apologizing to them immediately made Zhuo Xiangding and Zhuo Baitian feel a trace of unreality. The two of them hurriedly cupped their hands and said, "Lord, there's no need to be so polite. We can't accept it." In an instant, the originally somewhat tense atmosphere eased up a lot. "Grandfather, I've already found news about my aunt," Zhuowen suddenly said, but there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. "News about your aunt? How is she now?" Zhuo Xiangding's eyes were sharp and he immediately saw the sadness in Zhuowen's eyes. An unpleasant premonition arose in his heart. "This is the only thing my aunt left behind. Actually, she passed away 10 years ago." Zhuowen took out the dowry and solemnly handed it to Zhuo Xiangding. "Mei Jin, she's really gone." His shoulders trembling, Zhuo Xiangding trembled as he took the dowry. His eyes were suddenly filled with sorrow. Although he had already guessed it, he still couldn't calm down when he heard this terrible news with his own ears. "Your grandson has personally killed her murderer. It's just a pity that my aunt's body is no longer left. All that's left is this dowry." Zhuowen sighed and said with a bitter smile. "Zhuowen, can you tell me everything you know? I want to know how Mei Jin died." Zhuo Xiangding suddenly raised his head and looked directly at Zhuowen. Looking at the serious expression on Zhuo Xiangding's face, Zhuowen sighed and told him the truth of that year, as well as how he killed Zhao Yaoding. At the same time, Zhuowen also told him about the Arcana ceremony. After a long time, Zhuo Xiangding sighed deeply and said, "Back then, I knew that Zhao Yaoding was not a good person. But Mei Jin was too kind. She didn't want to make things difficult for our family, so she resolutely married Zhao Yaoding. I didn't expect that she would end up without a corpse. Zhuowen, we will arrange your aunt's funeral properly. You should return to Broken Rock City first. The Arcana ceremony is an opportunity for you. You can't miss it. If your aunt was still alive, she wouldn't want you to miss such a grand event like the Arcana ceremony." Zhuo Xiangding suddenly came to Zhuowen's side, patted him on the shoulder, and said softly. Looking deeply at the old man in front of him, Zhuowen suddenly felt a lump in his throat. He knew that Zhuo Xiangding said this because he didn't want to delay his future. He also knew how much the old man in front of him expected of him. He was afraid that even if the old man in front of him died, he would still let his grandson have a bright future. Zhuowen knew that the only thing he could do now was not to disappoint the old man in front of him, and not to disappoint the entire Zhuo family. After a slight hesitation, Zhuowen suddenly knelt down on both knees and bowed to Zhuo Xiangding from afar. He said seriously, "Grandfather, I promise you, whether it's the Arcana ceremony or the Vitality Tower battle in a year and a half, I won't admit defeat. I will continue to win until the Empire, the Eastern lands, and the entire continent know of our family's past glory once again." The young man's voice was sonorous and powerful. It was full of vigor, and it reverberated throughout the entire martial arts practice field. The tenacity and unyielding spirit in his voice caused everyone present to be intimidated. Chapter 272. Chapter 272 Field of Arcana. Early in the morning, when the first ray of warm sunlight shone on the vast and majestic Broken Rock City, the usually deserted streets actually became somewhat endless today, as if there was a sea of people. What was surprising was that most of the people in the crowd were dressed in loose black robes with golden emblems on their chests. These people were arcanists who were rarely seen. Although Broken Rock City was considered a powerful super city, the number of arcanists in the city was naturally not small. However, most of the arcanists were in seclusion to research, cultivate and refine crystals. They rarely appeared on the streets, which was why there were very few arcanists in the huge Broken Rock City. However, today was rather strange. Arcanists, who were rarely seen in the past, could be seen everywhere on the streets of Broken Rock City. Their numbers had reached a terrifying level. 5 days had already passed. Those who were in the know knew that today was the day of the Broken Rock City's Arcane Arts Guild's Arcane Arts Ceremony. It was said that the rewards for this Arcane Arts Ceremony were extremely rich. There was actually an extremely rare item like a Grade 4 Origin Array. It was precisely because of the attraction of the Grade 4 Origin Array that this year's Arcana Ceremony attracted the attention of even more Arcanists. Apart from the local Arcanists of Broken Rock City, even many Arcanists from other cities were attracted by the generous rewards. In the huge courtyard, Master Karaki was pacing back and forth, his face full of anxiety. He muttered to himself, "It's been 5 days. Why hasn't Zhuowen come back yet?" Sigh. Today is the day of the Arcana Ceremony. If this kid doesn't make it back in time, he'll probably be disqualified. Creak. The door to the courtyard was suddenly opened, and 3 figures appeared at the entrance. The 3 figures were led by a purple-robed old man. His hair and beard were all white, and he wore a smile on his face. It was Grandmaster Xianling, who had once stood together with Grandmaster Karaki in the Arcane Guild. The 2 people beside Xianling were naturally his disciples, Ouyang Yateo and Ouyang Shishue. Karaki. Today is the day of the Arcana Ceremony. Didn't you submit your disciple Zhuowen's name as well? Let's go to the Arcane Arts Guild together today. Xuanling's face was full of smiles as he walked towards Grandmaster Karaki. Beside her, Ouyang Yateo's expression was calm and steady as he meticulously followed behind Xianling. On the other hand, Ouyang Shishue curled her lips. After entering the courtyard, her beautiful watery eyes began to scan her surroundings, as if she was searching for someone. But when she saw that there was only Grandmaster Karaki, a puzzled expression appeared on her face. She muttered to herself, "Where's that annoying guy?" When he saw Xianling and the other 2 arrive, Grandmaster Tsangmu forced a smile and said, "I didn't expect Brother Xianling to wake up so early. The sun has just risen. Since today is the day of the Arcana Ceremony, I'm not in the mood to stay in bed any longer." However, this year's Arcana Ceremony was truly different from previous years. It had attracted many Arcanists from other cities. It is said that the 2 super cities closest to our Broken Rock City, Ending City and Yiyang City, have also sent their respective geniuses to participate. Xianling suddenly came to Grandmaster Karaki's side and said mysteriously. Hearing this, Grandmaster Karaki's expression changed. He said solemnly, "I didn't expect the 2 super cities to send their young generation of Arcana Masters. It seems that the Arcana Ceremony is really very attractive. I wonder how strong the geniuses sent by the 2 super cities are." Sigh. The Arcanists dispatched by Ending City and Yiyang City this time are truly extraordinary. They're the #1 figures of the younger generation in their cities, and their strengths are extremely formidable. It's said that their strengths have all reached the level of a rank 3 Arcanist. As for exactly what rank they've reached, it's unknown. Speaking of this, Xianling suddenly glanced at Ouyang Yateo and sighed. If it was the Arcana Ceremony of the past, with Yateo's complete Grade 2 strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to enter the top 3. But this time, I'm afraid it's almost impossible. The corner of Master Karaki's mouth also revealed a trace of a bitter smile. The person with the greatest mental energy talent in Broken Rock City was probably Master Kuya's disciple, Xuanai. His mental energy was already at the level of lower grade 3. This time, the two super cities, An City and Yeyang City, had sent out young experts whose strength was not weaker than Xuanai. It was likely that the competition in this arcane arts ceremony would become very intense. Ouyang Yateo, who was only at the level of complete grade 2, was indeed not enough. Beside him, Ouyang Yateo clenched his teeth when he heard this. A trace of sadness flashed across his eyes. He also admitted that with his current strength, it was indeed very difficult for him to obtain the top 3 in this Arcana Grand Ceremony. Perhaps, even the top 5 would be somewhat difficult. Karaki, where's your disciple, Zhuoan? Call him. Let's go to the Arcana Guild together. The Arcana ceremony will officially begin when the sun is high in the sky. Your disciple is quite talented, but he's still young. The competition for the Arcana ceremony this time is so intense. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for him to achieve a good result. But it's good to be able to accumulate some experience and broaden his horizons. Xianling suddenly changed the topic. Hearing this, Karaki smiled bitterly and said, "My disciple still has some matters to attend to. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it back in time. Let's go first. He'll go directly to the Arcana Guild later." Oh? Is there anything more important than the Arcana ceremony? Xianling was surprised when she heard this. That guy can't be afraid of the Arcana ceremony, which is full of geniuses, so he's looking for an excuse. Ouyang Shishui immediately mocked. Women were the most vengeful. Last time, Zhuoan embarrassed her. She had always disliked Zhuoan. Now that Zhuoan didn't appear, she naturally didn't spare any effort to mock him. Shishui, don't talk too much. Seeing that Grandmaster Karaki's expression was rather ugly, Xianling immediately scolded, making Ouyang Shishui obediently shut up. Then, Xianling smiled and continued, "You don't have to lower yourself to the same level as this girl. Since little brother Zhuoan has matters to attend to, let's go to the Arcana Guild first." Grandmaster Karaki was expressionless. He nodded slightly and walked out of the courtyard first. On the other hand, Ouyang Shishui shrunk her neck. She also knew that she had spoken too rashly. Under Xuanling's glare, she could only stick out her tongue. Once Karaki, Xianling, and the other 3 left the courtyard, they headed straight for the Arcana Guild. However, along the way, the 4 of them saw Arcana Masters wearing long robes of various colors everywhere. The number of Arcana Masters was like a hornet's nest, causing the 4 of them to click their tongues. The 4 of them finally realized how great the attraction of the Arcana ceremony was. On the south side of the Arcana Guild, there was an extremely vast square. The square stretched horizontally and vertically for dozens of feet. The area was so large that it could accommodate tens of thousands of people. This square was called the Arcana Trials Field. It was specially built by the Arcana Guild to hold every Arcana ceremony or other grand meetings related to Arcana Masters. The Arcana Trials Field was extremely famous in the Arcana Guild. The Arcane Test Field was oval in shape, and at the edge of the oval was a huge wall stacked with bluestone slabs. The height of the wall was at least 10 meters, and on top of the wall were rows of seats. Obviously, these seats were used for spectating purposes. At this moment, the Arcana Trials Field was extremely lively. Many Arcana Masters had already entered and sat down on the seats in the Arcana Trials Field, silently waiting for the Arcana ceremony to begin. Karaki, Xianling. Come over. When Karaki and Xianling arrived outside the Arcana Trials Field, they were stopped by a voice filled with vicissitudes of life. The 2 of them could not help but turn around and immediately saw Master Kuya in a gray robe slowly walking over with Xuanai. His wrinkled face was filled with a warm smile. "Greetings, Mr. President." When Karaki and Xianling saw that it was Master Kuya, they quickly cupped their hands and bowed respectfully. "No need to be so courteous. This time, you've also brought your disciples to participate in the Arcana ceremony, right? Most of the Arcana Masters participating in this Arcana ceremony are not from Broken Rock City. As Arcana Masters of Broken Rock City, you have to work hard. You can't tarnish the reputation of our Broken Rock City's Arcana Guild." Kuya smiled and shifted his gaze to the siblings, Ouyang Yateo and Ouyang Shishue, who were behind Xianling. However, when he saw that Master Kuraki was alone, Master Kuya was suddenly stunned. He then asked, "Kuraki, where's your disciple, Zhuowen? Why don't I see him by your side today?" Kuraki smiled embarrassedly and said, "Zhuowen has urgent matters to attend to, so he won't be here for a while. However, he should be here before the Arcana ceremony." What urgent matters could be more important than the Arcana ceremony? Your disciple's talent and strength are not bad. I'm afraid that he will perform well in this Arcana ceremony. I still think highly of him. Master Kuya gave Kuraki a meaningful glance and said with a smile. Then, thank you for your praise, Master Kuya. Kuraki's smile was rather stiff, but his heart was filled with anxiety. Meanwhile, Xuanai's beautiful eyes narrowed. The corners of her cherry-red lips revealed a trace of mockery and disdain. She whispered in a voice that only she could hear, "It seems that he's just a guy who likes to talk big. 5 days ago, he boasted in front of me, wanting to show me who's the frog at the bottom of the well. Today, he doesn't dare to come. However, I don't have to be too calculative with this cowardly guy. There's no need to. Let's go. Let's all enter the Arcana training field. This Arcana ceremony is different from the past. Many big shots have come. Not only our Broken Rock City's city lord, Ouyang Yintu, and the ancestors of the 4 great families are here, but even the vice presidents of the 2 Arcana guilds of Inding City and Yeyang City have personally come." Master Kuya smiled and led Xuanai into the entrance of the Arcana training field. Chapter 273. Yiyang City and Inding City. The VIP seats at the top of the arcane testing grounds were already filled with people. When Master Kuya brought Sangmu, Xianling, and the others in, they immediately attracted the attention of many people in the VIP seats. "Master Kuya, you're finally here. We were just talking about you." A tall and sturdy middle-aged man in purple armor welcomed Master Kuya and the others with a hearty laugh. His eyes sparkled when he saw them enter. "City Lord Ouyang, long time no see. I didn't think that you would personally come to watch this year's arcane ceremony. I didn't expect that." Master Kuya smiled and replied. The smiling middle-aged man in purple armor was the city lord of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yintu. He was a second-will ultimate emperor realm expert. Behind Ouyang Yintu were 4 old men in long robes. These 4 old men were the 4 chief guards of the city lord's estate. They were all half-step ultimate emperor realm experts. This year's arcane ceremony is different from the past. Inding City and Yiyang City have also sent their own arcane geniuses. As the city lord, I naturally can't ignore it. At this point, Ouyang Yintu suddenly focused his gaze on Ouyang Yateo and Ouyang Shishue, who were beside Master Xianling. He smiled and said, "The 2 of you are outstanding disciples of the city lord's estate. You must perform well in this arcane ceremony." When Ouyang Yateo and Ouyang Shishue heard this, they immediately revealed excited expressions. They hurriedly bowed and said, "Thank you for your kindness, City Lord. We will definitely do our best." Ouyang Yintu nodded slightly and continued chatting with Master Kuya. Xianling and Sangmu tactfully found a seat and sat down, silently waiting for the arcane ceremony to begin. In the VIP seats, apart from the members of the Arcane Guild and the City Lord's estate, the patriarchs of the 4 great clans of Broken Rock City had also brought their own geniuses. Among them, the patriarch of the Zhao clan, Zhao Xuanwu, was also seated. "Father, didn't Big Brother Zhuowen say that he's also going to participate in the arcane ceremony? Why haven't I seen him yet?" Beside Zhao Xuanwu sat a young and beautiful girl. The girl was using her watery eyes to constantly sweep around the VIP seats. After discovering that there was no one she wanted, a trace of disappointment surfaced on her pretty face. "Don't worry. The Arcana ceremony is a grand event in Broken Rock City. As long as one is an Arcanist, it is impossible for them to miss this grand event. Moreover, this year's Arcana ceremony is especially prosperous. Given our young friend Zhuowen's character, he will definitely not miss this grand event. Zhao Xuanwu lovingly stroked the young girl's hair and smiled gently. However, I heard that the Arcana guilds of the two super cities, Ending City and Yeyang City, have sent some genius disciples this time, and there's even a grade 3 Arcana master amongst them. I'm afraid the Arcana ceremony this time will be a fierce battle. Although our young friend Zhuowen is already a grade 2 Arcana master at such a young age, this level may not be enough for this Arcana ceremony. Looking at the densely packed arcanists in the seats, Zhao Xuanwu's heart was filled with shock. Hearing this, Zhao Wenxian curled her lips and pouted, I believe in big brother Zhuowen. He's definitely the best. Zhao Xuanwu dotingly stroked his daughter's hair, but his heart was a little complicated. As the patriarch of the Zhao clan, he knew much more inside information than others. The competition in this Arcana ceremony was too fierce. Perhaps even the Arcana Guild's president, Master Kuya's disciple, Xuanai, did not have 100% chance of becoming the champion this time. In this somewhat boring wait, suddenly, a rather ear-piercing sound of breaking through the air suddenly whistled. Then, in the sky above the arcane art trial field, a pair of figures shot straight toward the VIP seats, and appeared in the VIP seats in an instant. There were a total of 5 people in this group. The leader was a gray-robed old man with a cold expression. Behind him were 4 young men and women wearing Arcanist uniforms. There were 3 men and 1 woman, but the insignia on their Arcanist uniforms was very different from the Arcanists of Broken Rock City. On the back of their uniforms, there was a blood-red sunset insignia, as if it was the sunset that was gradually setting over the mountains. People from Yeyang City. Many people in the VIP seats recognized the insignia on their uniforms and could not help but exclaim. In the VIP seats, Master Kuya and Ouyang Yintu, who were originally chatting with each other, also noticed the sudden arrival of the group. Among them, Master Kuya narrowed his eyes. Then, he laughed heartily and walked forward. He warmly said, Master Han Yun, I really did not expect that the leader of Yeyang City's team this time would be you. This has really surprised me. The cold old man leading the group revealed a slight smile when he saw Master Kuya coming forward. He faintly said, this time, your Broken Rock City's Arcana Guild has already taken out a grade 4 Yuan array as a reward. Our Yeyang City has no reason not to participate. Brother Kuya, if our Yeyang City accidentally becomes the champion this time. Han Yun, the champion of this Arcana ceremony is not your Yeyang City's turn to take it. If anyone wants to take it, it should be the geniuses of our Ending City. Before the cold old man named Han Yun could finish speaking, he was directly interrupted by a loud voice. Then, another sound of something breaking through the air rushed over. There was another group on the aisle of the VIP seats. However, what surprised everyone was that there were only 3 people in this group. The leader was a middle-aged man with fiery red hair. Although this middle-aged man was wearing a rather loose robe, it still could not hide his protruding fiery muscles. Clearly, this middle-aged man not only had strong mental energy, but his martial realm was also not weak. Behind this red-haired man, there was a man and a woman quietly following. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. Moreover, the man and woman's appearance were quite similar. Clearly, they were a pair of twins. Master Huiyun from Ending City. He's also a grade 4 Master Arcana Master. The arrival of the red-haired man also caused a commotion in the VIP seats. Many people began to discuss spiritedly. Clearly, this Master Huiyun was quite famous. Master Han Yun's eyes darkened when he heard this. He coldly snorted and said, Huiyun, you're too arrogant. In order to become the champion of the Arcana ceremony, our Yeyang City even sent our Arcana Guild's #1 genius, Zhou Yi. His mental energy broke through to the advanced grade 3 realm 3 months ago. As soon as Han Yun's words came out, it immediately attracted the attention of many people in the VIP seats. Then, these people's gazes fell on the 4 young men and women behind him. The mental energy emitted from these 4 young men and women was very powerful. Among them, the weakest was the only woman. Her mental energy was at the perfect grade 2 realm. the other two young men were actually at the initial grade 3 realm. The most terrifying one was an ordinary man with thick eyebrows and big eyes standing at the front. This man's age was about the same as Ouyang Yateo, but the power that he faintly revealed was quite terrifying. This power had far surpassed the three young men and women behind him. Advanced grade 3 realm. Master Kuya frowned slightly and involuntarily muttered in a low voice. When Xuanai, who had a cold expression beside him, heard this, her originally calm and beautiful eyes immediately rippled a little. She could not help but turn her clear eyes towards the ordinary-looking young man behind Master Han Yun. There was a trace of surprise on her calm face. She also didn't expect that this ordinary-looking young man in front of her actually had a mental energy realm that was a step ahead of her. This made her, who was originally arrogant, feel quite uncomfortable. Master Huiyun sneered and said, "Your Yeyang City's Zhou Yi is indeed a genius with decent natural talent. However, no matter how outstanding his natural talent is, how could he possibly be a match for two Arcana Masters at the peak of the 3rd rank? Su Qi, Su Yang, let them see your true strength." Grandmaster Huiyun's words caused the corners of the mouths of the twin siblings behind him to form an arc. Soon after, two mental energy that was not weaker than Zhou Yi's surged out in an instant and spread across the entire VIP seats in all directions. Oh my god! They're actually advanced grade 3 realm arcanists, and there are two of them. The strength of Ending's city is really strong. They can actually cultivate two young advanced grade 3 realm arcanists. Although Ending's city sent the least number of arcanists this time, their strength is the strongest. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid that Ending's city will be the champion of this arcane ceremony. When the twin siblings behind Master Huiyun, Su Qi and Su Yang, completely released their mental energy, the VIP seats were completely in an uproar. Everyone was discussing spiritedly, and for a moment, the atmosphere in the seats became quite fiery. Your Ending city is really good at hiding. You actually hid two advanced grade 3 realm arcanists. However, the champion of this arcane ceremony isn't so easy to obtain. When the time comes, it's not certain who will win. Master Han Yun's expression was quite ugly. He also didn't expect that there would be two advanced grade 3 realm arcanists among the younger generation of Ending city. Then, this old man will wait and see. Master Huiyun's expression was rather straightforward. Then, he shifted his gaze to Master Kuya, who seemed to be silent at the side. He continued, "Brother Kuya, this arcane ceremony is organized by Broken Rock City after all. I'm afraid the disciples sent by Broken Rock City this time will be even stronger. Why don't you introduce us to the disciples from Broken Rock City who will be participating this time?" When Master Han Yun heard this, he also focused his gaze on Master Kuya. There was a hint of curiosity on his face. Obviously, he was interested in the arcanists from Broken Rock City this time. When Master Kuya heard this, a hint of embarrassment suddenly appeared on his face. Then, he glanced helplessly at Xuanai beside him and smiled faintly. "This is my disciple, Xuanai. She's one of the participants of this arcane ceremony. Other than her, there's also the disciple from the city governor's mansion, Ouyang Yateo. I'm afraid that the strength sent by Broken Rock City this time can't be compared to the two of you." Xuanai bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. Her originally cold eyes were now filled with sadness. After seeing the lineup brought by the two masters, Huiyun and Han Yun, the arrogance in her heart had long been torn to pieces. She knew that with her strength, it would be difficult for her to get into the top 3 in this arcana ceremony. Initial grade 3 realm. Your strength is not bad. However, who is the strongest among the younger generation in Broken Rock City? This old man would like to meet that little guy. Master Huiyun nodded politely to Xuanai, then looked at Master Kuya and asked in confusion. "Brother Huiyun, the strength of our Broken Rock City is weak. The strongest among the younger generation is Xuanai, unlike Yeyang City and Ending City who both have advanced grade 3 realm arcanists." Master Kuya's face suddenly turned cold, and his tone was stiff. Chapter 274. Celestial star array. The strange atmosphere didn't last for long. Master Huiyun immediately smiled. So this little girl is from your Broken Rock City's younger generation. Her talent isn't bad. She's younger than Su Qi and Su Yang, but she's already at the advanced 3rd grade. That's not easy. Although Master Huiyun had a smile on his face, the depths of his eyes were filled with ridicule and mockery. He knew that if the Arcana Masters sent out by Broken Rock City were only at this level, then their Nding City's only opponent would be Yeyang City. With Su Qi and Su Yang, 2 advanced 3rd grade arcanists, Master Huiyun knew that Yeyang City had a great chance of becoming the champion this time. Humph. Master Kuya coldly snorted and returned to his seat with Xuanai. He didn't want to speak with Master Huiyun anymore. Xuanai, on the other hand, clenched her hands tightly together and bit her cherry lips. She firmly said to Master Kuya beside her, "Master, I won't let you down in this Arcana ceremony." Master Kuya was startled. Then, with a gentle gaze, he patted Xuanai's shoulder and smiled, "You don't have to worry too much. Although the disciples sent by Nding City and Yeyang City are very strong, our Broken Rock City isn't weak either. You don't have to worry too much. Just do your best." I will." Xuanai nodded and firmly said. As time passed by, the Arcana testing grounds became more and more lively. An endless stream of arcanists poured in from the entrance of the testing grounds, causing the originally spacious testing grounds to become a little crowded and noisy. As time continued to pass, the anxious expression on Master Karaki's face became more and more intense. He frowned and muttered to himself, "The Arcana ceremony is almost here. Why hasn't Zhuowen arrived yet? If he doesn't come soon, I'm afraid it'll really be too late." Xianling beside him also saw the uneasiness on Master Karaki's face. She sighed, "Karaki, isn't that disciple of yours being too childish? Why hasn't he arrived yet? If he doesn't come soon, there won't be any time left." Master Karaki didn't reply. He only sat in his seat in silence. However, his furrowed brows showed that he wasn't in a good mood. At this moment, a gloating smile appeared on Ouyang Shishui's face. Dong! 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 In the end, a clear and loud sound of a bell suddenly rang throughout the entire arcane art trial grounds. The loud and clear sound continued to reverberate throughout the entire trial grounds, and the originally loud noise quietly quieted down at this moment. The dense crowd of locust-like arcanists on the training field all raised their respectful gazes and looked towards the VIP seats at the very top. They knew that Master Kuya, the arcanist with a lofty status in Broken Rock City, was sitting in the VIP seats. At this moment, Master Kuya's weathered face was filled with a solemn expression. He stood up and looked down at the empty training field below. His calm voice slowly rang out, "Kuya, in the name of the president of Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild, announce that the 10th Arcane Ceremony will now begin." Boom! The entire place was in an uproar. Loud cheers shook the 9 heavens. After the announcement, a dozen figures immediately rushed out from the VIP seats. Among them, Master Kuya was the leader, and the rest were all perfect grade 3 arcanists. Master Kuya led the dozen or so arcanists and stood in the air above the training field. Then, Master Kuya's hands quickly formed a complicated seal and shouted, "Form the celestial star formation." After saying that, Master Kuya patted his Chinkuan bag. Then, countless sparkling origin crystals immediately scattered from his hands. They were like light that drifted across the air in a dazzling trajectory. The celestial star formation, only one direction, mountains crumble in front, earth shatters into peaks. The moment Master Kuya scattered the origin crystals, the dozen or so arcanists also drew a complicated trajectory with their hands. Obscure seals flashed past one after another. Then, everyone could clearly feel that the origin chi above the arcane art trial grounds had actually started to boil strangely at this moment. Then, the countless origin crystals that were like meteors in the air suddenly intertwined and outlined in an extremely strange trajectory in the air. They actually intertwined to form a boundary with a radius of several hundred miles in the vast training field. Rumble! A deafening explosion suddenly sounded. Then, the ground within the boundary suddenly cracked open. A dazzling light, like a protruding peak, suddenly rushed out from the depths of the ground. When the light gradually faded, a pyramid-like mountain peak that was several hundred feet tall suddenly appeared in front of everyone. This pyramid-like mountain peak was quite strange. There were layers of steps on its edge. The steps were 10 feet long and 10 feet high. Each step was enough to accommodate 2 to 3 people. There were tens of thousands of such steps from the lowest to the highest. The surface of the entire pyramid-like mountain peak flickered with a faint blue light. Looking from afar, it looked distant and mysterious. Above the pyramid, there were countless twinkling stars. Above the celestial star formation, the stars were bright and brilliant, mysterious and gorgeous. It's actually a grade 4 origin array, celestial star formation. It seems that Kuya has really put in a lot of effort to hold this arcane art ceremony. In the VIP seats, Huiyun looked at the pyramid-like mountain peak in the boundary and the countless stars on the mountain peak. His eyes couldn't help but flicker as he muttered to himself. All the arcanists in the entire arcane art trial field fell into silence and shock because of the great effort of Master Kuya and the others. After the silence, countless cheers and applause broke out. After gathering the power of more than a dozen perfect grade 3 arcanists and outlining the magnificent celestial star formation below, Master Kuya expressionlessly stomped his foot in the air again and shouted, "Sacrifice the tower! Sacrifice the tower!" As soon as Kuya finished speaking, the dozen or so arcanists in the surroundings immediately shouted in unison. Their loud and clear voices were deafening and shocking throughout the training ground. Whoosh! After saying that, Master Kuya patted his Chinkuan bag again and took out a palm-sized light tower. This pocket-sized light tower was emitting a glass-like brilliance. Waves of frightening mental energy constantly surged out from the light tower, and the surrounding air emitted some muffled tearing sounds. A thought passed through Grandmaster Kuya's mind after he suddenly took out the light tower. The incomparably powerful mental energy within his Naiwan palace surged out like floodwaters and poured into the light tower. The remaining dozen-plus people did the same. Their mental energy poured into the light tower like it was pouring into the sea. Buzz! 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 A strange sound rang out. Then, the palm-sized light tower suspended in the air suddenly trembled. After emitting a loud buzzing sound, it rapidly expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. 10 feet. 50 feet. 100 feet. 200 feet. 500 feet, like a small sapling growing into a towering tree, the palm-sized light pagoda eventually turned into a gigantic pagoda that was 500 feet tall. In the end, the gigantic pagoda rumbled and landed not far from the pyramid. The two gigantic buildings faced each other from a distance under the starry sky. Watching such a shocking scene in the training field, all the arcanists could not help but feel their blood boil. They knew that they were going to have an arcane competition under the stars. Regardless of whether it was the huge scene or the vast area, it made all the arcanists' eyes light up. After doing all that, Master Kuya's eyes narrowed. He looked down at everyone in the training field and loudly said, "The Arcana ceremony is divided into 3 stages. The first stage is the Gold Peak. There are a total of 10,000 steps on the Gold Peak. Moreover, there is a powerful mental energy pressure. The higher you go, the stronger the mental energy pressure. At the top of the Gold Peak, there are 100 bluestone platforms. The seal-breaking crystal, a grade 2 origin crystal, is placed on the bluestone platforms. Only the top 100 competitors who reach the peak will pass the first stage. Therefore, the first stage will now begin. The time limit is the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." Boom! As soon as Master Kuya finished speaking, the arcanists who had been waiting in their seats for a long time rushed toward the celestial star array like a swarm of locusts. They were heading toward the gold peak that was emitting a faint blue light. Su Qi, Su Yang. The first stage shouldn't be difficult for you. With your strength, you should be able to quickly take the lead. Now, you should go too. Master Huiyun smiled faintly. His face was full of calmness as he said to the twins behind him. Yes, Master. Su Qi and Su Yang respectfully cupped their hands toward Master Huiyun. Then, powerful mental energy wrapped around them and they flew toward the celestial star array. Not far away, Master Han Yun cast a sidelong glance at Master Huiyun's back and said to the four people led by Zhou Yi, "The most important stage of this arcana ceremony is the third stage. The four of you should be able to pass the first stage as long as you pay attention. You should go too." "Yes, Master." Zhou Yi was full of energy as he bowed from afar. Then, he led the three people behind him and flew toward the gold peak without looking back. On the side of the VIP seats, Xuanai looked at Su Qi, Su Yang, and the others with a complicated expression. She gritted her teeth and a determined look appeared in her beautiful eyes. Then, she also extended her graceful figure and shot out like the wind. "I must win this arcana ceremony. This time, it's not only my honor, but also the honor of the entire Broken Rock City." As Xuanai left, Ouyang Yateo, who was beside Master Xianling, also flew out without hesitation and joined the countless arcanists who were fighting for the materials. At this moment, cold sweat faintly appeared on Master Karaki's forehead. He sat in his seat somewhat dejectedly and muttered to himself with a bitter smile, "Sigh. It's over, it's over. Zhuowen still hasn't come. It looks like he won't be able to make it. I shouldn't have let him leave Broken Rock City without permission. I shouldn't have." Xianling looked at Master Karaki, who seemed to be in a daze, and sighed. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly frowned and raised her head to look at the horizon not far away. Chapter 275. The Golden Summit. The powerful pressure was like a tidal wave, rushing straight from the distant horizon. Its speed had reached an appalling level. In the VIP seats, countless people couldn't help but stand up, frowning as they looked in the direction of the pressure. So powerful, so familiar. This aura. Ouyang Yuntu, who was chatting cheerfully, suddenly stood up and looked into the distance. He had a feeling that this aura was familiar. Whoosh! Whoosh! Not long after, under everyone's gaze, two figures suddenly appeared in the sky above the training field. The figures that suddenly appeared were Zhuowen and Qiu Chou, who had rushed over from Rattan Armor City. Quietly suspended in the air, Zhuowen couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead as he muttered to himself, "I finally made it. I thought I was going to miss the arcana ceremony. Kid, don't you trust me that much? I said that I would make you arrive on time, so I will definitely keep my word." Looking at the situation, the first stage of the arcana ceremony should have begun. "Hurry up and go to the Golden Summit. As long as you reach the summit within the top 100, you will have passed the first stage." Qiu Chou stood proudly and said with a frown. Zhuowen didn't have the slightest doubt that Qiu Chou knew so much about the arcana ceremony. After all, this guy used to be the #1 expert in Broken Rock City. It wasn't surprising that he knew the upper echelons of the Arcana Guild, so it was normal for him to know some details about the Arcana ceremony. "Okay, thank you for your help this time, Senior Qiu." Nodding slightly, Zhuowen, wrapped in Qiu Chou's Yuan power, flew toward the celestial star array at a dazzling speed. In a flash, he approached the Golden Summit. At this time, there were already many arcanists gathered below the Golden Summit. There were over 10,000 steps to the Golden Peak. The most important material for the seal-shattering crystal should be at the very top of the Golden Peak. At this moment, the Arcana Masters were all using their own spirit to quickly climb up. The pressure brought about by the arrival of Qiu Chou and Zhuowen naturally attracted the attention of the Arcanists on the Golden Peak stage. When they realized that the one who came to participate in this arcana ceremony was actually a young man who smelled like he was still wet behind the ears, a look of disdain and contempt appeared on their faces. Even Su Qi, Su Yang and Zhou Yi, who were at the top of the group, suddenly ignored Zhuowen when they saw his somewhat tender face. Instead, they focused on activating the mental energy in their bodies and continuously climbing up the golden platform. To them, this young man who had suddenly appeared did not pose any threat to them. Xuanai, who was behind Su Qi and the rest, also saw Zhuowen. She frowned and muttered in a low voice, "That guy still came. But with his mere grade 2 mental energy, he's of no help to our Broken Rock City at all. This arcana ceremony still needs to rely on me." After Xuanai finished speaking, she no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. Instead, she constantly activated the mental energy in her body and tried her best to catch up with the others in front of her. When he reached the bottom of the Golden Peak stage, Zhuowen awkwardly realized that he was the only one left at the bottom. The thousands of arcanists were already climbing with all their might. Even the slowest one was faster than Zhuowen by a few hundred steps, while the fastest ones had already left Zhuowen behind by more than 1,000 steps. "Looks like I have to speed up, otherwise I won't even be able to enter the top 100. From the beginning, Zhuowen had suppressed his mental energy to the level of grade 2 advanced mastery. But now, Zhuowen did not want to expose his grade 3 advanced mastery mental energy prematurely. "If I raise my mental energy to grade 2 advanced mastery and then use the effect of the thunder snake wings, my speed should be comparable to that of a grade 3 initial mastery arcanist." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Mental energy suddenly surged out from his Naiwen palace, and the soles of his feet were also filled with electric light. As he took a step forward, his entire body was filled with electric light. In an instant, he turned into numerous shadows under the Golden Peak stage and rushed up the Golden Peak stage at a rapid speed. In the sky above the training field, after Cho sent Zhuowen to the Golden Peak stage, he stepped lightly in the air and directly arrived at the VIP seats. Then, he casually sat down in a seat. He was so thick-skinned that he did not feel embarrassed at all. In the VIP seats, Master Karaki, who was originally in a daze, saw that Zhuowen had actually arrived. His eyes suddenly flashed with a ray of light. He laughed out loud and said, "Fortunately, Zhuowen arrived in time. Otherwise, he would really be disqualified from this arcana ceremony." Xianling, who was beside him, smiled bitterly and said, "Karaki, although Zhuowen arrived, he left much later than the others. If he was not late, he might have a chance to enter the top 100. But now, I'm afraid it will be a little difficult." Master Karaki had already recovered his spirit. His eyes were shining as he said, "I don't think so. Zhuowen should have no problem entering the top 100. Xianling was a little speechless as she glanced at her good friend beside her. She was too lazy to say anything else. She only muttered to herself, "He's already a few hundred steps behind the others. Unless he has a third-grade mental energy, it will be very difficult for him to catch up with the others and enter the top 100. On the other side of the VIP seats, after Cho sat down in a familiar manner, Ouyang Yintu's eyes flickered. After carefully sizing up Cho, he asked cautiously, You are Senior Cho. Although the Cho before him had a rather sinister scar on his face, his basic outline was still quite clear. When Ouyang Yintu saw Cho's face, he recalled that unruly and unreasonable figure from 10 years ago. "Little Ouyang, your memory is not bad. You actually still remember this old man." Cho glanced at Ouyang Yintu meaningfully and laughed mischievously. "Huh. That's because Senior Cho's deeds back then were too sensational. My memory of Senior is still fresh in my mind," Ouyang Yintu said with a smile. Ouyang Yintu's somewhat fawning performance immediately caused many people in the VIP seats to raise their eyebrows. In their hearts, they were secretly guessing exactly which great figure Cho was. Even Grandmaster Han Yun and Grandmaster Hui Yun had grave gazes as they looked at Cho. Although the two of them did not know Cho, they could still feel the faintly discernible terrifying aura from Cho. This aura was even more terrifying than Ouyang Yintu's. In other words, Cho's strength was definitely above Ouyang Yintu's. "Old brother Cho, I thought you wouldn't come. So you're here to deliver that little guy Zhuowen. However, this old man is a little curious. How do you know this little guy? It seems that the relationship between the two of you is not ordinary." After Master Kuya returned from the training field, he saw Cho. He immediately walked over with a hearty smile and patted Cho's shoulder. "This old man owes this little guy a favor." Cho Cho glanced at Master Kuya and said indifferently. A favor? Master Kuya and Ouyang Yintu were shocked when they heard this. An ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator's favor was not so easy to obtain. It could be said that an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator's favor was a priceless treasure. They never thought that a 17-year-old youth like Zhuowen would actually be able to make Cho Cho owe him a favor. For a moment, Zhuowen's identity became somewhat strange and mysterious in their hearts. Let's not talk about these boring things. Let's see how the Arcana ceremony is going. Cho Cho waved his hand impatiently and said indifferently as he pointed at the golden summit within the celestial star formation. After Cho Cho finished speaking, Ouyang Yintu and Master Kuya stopped talking. Instead, their gazes focused on the golden summit within the celestial star formation. The three people in the lead don't seem to be arcanists from our Broken Rock City, right? Cho Cho's sharp gaze immediately focused on the three people who had been in the lead and said with a frown. Master Kuya smiled bitterly and said, "They are indeed not from our Broken Rock City. The person in the lead is called Su Yang and the person in third place is called Su Qi. They are twins and are two genius arcanists from Settlement City. Their mental strength has already reached the greater success of the third grade. The person in second place is called Zhou Yi. He is the strongest among the younger generation in Yeyang City and is also at the greater success of the third grade. The person in fourth place is my disciple, Xuanai. Her mental strength is probably at the peak of the lesser success of the third grade." At this point, the bitterness at the corner of Master Kuya's mouth became even more intense. The strength of the younger generation in Broken Rock City was actually inferior to that of Yeyang City and Settlement City. This made Master Kuya feel a little ashamed. Your Broken Rock City's arcane guild is really getting worse with each passing year. The younger generation that you have nurtured is actually inferior to that of Settlement City and Yeyang City? Cho Cho said coldly. Looking at the somewhat silent Master Kuya, Cho Cho waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I don't want to interfere in the matters of your Broken Rock City's arcane guild. However, if your Broken Rock City's arcanists really lose this arcane ceremony, I'm afraid that you will become the laughingstock of other super cities. I hope that your disciple will do well." After Cho Cho finished speaking, he focused his gaze on Zhuowen who was at the back. He wanted to see how the always confident young man would be able to enter the top 100 in such a backward situation. How is this kid so fast? Isn't his mental strength only at the greater success of the second grade? When Cho Cho's gaze fell on Zhuowen who was at the back, he suddenly exclaimed softly. Cho Cho's words also attracted the attention of Master Kuya and Ouyang Yintu who were beside him. They could not help but shift their gazes to Zhuowen who was at the back. Then, a hint of astonishment appeared in their calm eyes. The young man who was at the back was currently covered with countless twining lightning bolts. His entire body was like a sharp bolt of lightning. In just an instant, he had surpassed many people. Chapter 276. First pass. As expected, the spiritual pressure on the golden platform grows stronger the higher I go. I've only reached the 5,000th step, but the pressure is already enough to make ordinary rank 2 Arcana Masters slow down. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he stared at the Arcanists, who were clearly slowing down, as he stood halfway up the golden platform. He could sense that the Arcanists who were able to reach the mountainside were all Grade 2 Arcanists. Although most of them were Grade 2 lower-tier Arcanists, there were also some Grade 2 greater-tier Arcanists. Zhuowen's arrival naturally attracted the attention of many Arcanists halfway up the mountain. When these Arcanists noticed Zhuowen's face, they were all surprised. They could still clearly remember that the young man in front of them had only arrived after the first stage had started. His position should have been at the very back of everyone. It hadn't been long since he had arrived, but he was already halfway up the mountain. Wasn't this speed a little too shocking? Zhuowen ignored the curious gazes of the Arcanists around him and raised his head to look at the endless flight of stairs. His brows furrowed slightly. If the pressure on the golden platform grew stronger and stronger, his speed would most likely slow down. When that happened, he wouldn't be able to guarantee that he would be able to make it into the top 100 in the allotted time. Dong! A loud and clear sound of a bell suddenly rang out, reverberating throughout the entire arcane trial grounds like a great bell. It immediately attracted the attention of all the climbing arcanists. Then, at the top of the golden stage, a huge light screen suddenly appeared like a banner. At the top of the light screen was the two huge words, Su Yang, which was unusually conspicuous in the entire arcane test field. Someone has already reached the top of the Golden Word Summit. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Who is this Su Yang? He doesn't seem to be an arcanist from Broken Rock City. I heard that this Su Yang is a genius sent by Nding City's arcane guild. His mental energy has already reached the advanced 3rd grade, much stronger than our Broken Rock City's Xuanai. The seats above the training ground first descended into a short period of silence before a clamorous discussion suddenly erupted. In the VIP seats, a smug smile suddenly appeared on Master Huiyun's face. He glanced at Master Han Yun with a slight provocation and said, "It seems that our Anding City is still a little better. Su Yang is still quite capable." When Master Huiyun said this, Master Han Yun's face became extremely gloomy. He said coldly, "This is only the first stage. It doesn't mean anything." Really? Grandmaster Huiyun chuckled coldly and did not say anything else. Instead, he turned his attention back to the Golden Word stage. Cho Cho, Master Kuya, and the others who were sitting in the front row also heard Master Huiyun's words and their expressions turned ugly. "Brother Kuya, your disciple is much weaker than those two old fellows' disciples. Right now, he's still only ranked 4th. Cho Cho coldly snorted. When Master Kuya heard this, he felt somewhat uncomfortable. He smiled bitterly and said, "There's nothing we can do about it. After all, Xuanai is a few years younger than their disciples. It's understandable that her strength is a little weaker." Halfway up the Golden Word stage, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He immediately turned his head to look at the incense stick that had just been lit and muttered, "This Su Yang is a little too strong. It's only been half an incense stick's time and he's already reached the top. Fortunately, this is only the first stage. As long as he gets into the top 100, it's fine." At around the 9,000th step of the Golden Word stage, Xuanai continued to climb up with some difficulty. She was panting and sweating profusely. She looked at Su Qi, who was not far away from her, with a trace of determination in her eyes. "At the very least, I have to make it into the top 3. Only then will I not embarrass our Broken Rock City too much. If no one in the top 3 is an arcanist from Broken Rock City, I don't know what others will think of our Broken Rock City." As she spoke, Xuanai forcefully unleashed the mental energy in her Naiwen Palace. Her speed increased by a few notches, and she was only 10 steps away from Su Qi. In front, Su Qi seemed to have also noticed Xuanai, who was constantly approaching below. Her beautiful eyes shifted slightly, and after glancing at Xuanai, who seemed to be struggling, a cold smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "A mere initial grade 3 arcanist wants to surpass me? That's a little wishful thinking." As she spoke, an even more powerful mental energy suddenly erupted from Su Qi's body. Then, with a light step, her speed increased by several times. In the blink of an eye, she had left Xuanai behind by dozens of steps. Xuanai's pretty face instantly turned deathly pale as she looked at the beautiful figure who was getting further and further away from her. A trace of helplessness faintly leaked out from her clear and cold eyes. She was really unwilling to accept this. The Arcana ceremony was clearly held by their Broken Rock City, but none of the top 3 arcanists in the first stage belonged to their Broken Rock City. This involuntarily caused a trace of grievance to rise in Xuanai's heart. Dong! Dong! Another 2 loud bell sounds rang out, and 2 more names appeared on the light screen at the top of the Golden Word Summit. They were Zhou Yi and Su Qi, ranked 2nd and 3rd respectively. Xuanai clenched her teeth as she looked at the 3 names on the light screen at the top. The helplessness in her eyes became even more intense. However, this girl's willpower was quite firm. She clenched her teeth and continued to climb. Finally, after 20 breaths, she reached the top of the Golden Word Summit. The top of the Golden Word Summit was a vast platform. On the platform, there were neatly arranged green stone platforms. There were a total of 100 stone platforms, and the materials needed to refine the seal-breaking crystal were placed on top of the stone platforms. Xuanai's appearance naturally attracted the attention of Su Yang, Zhou Yi, and Su Qi, who were already waiting at the top. However, their gazes were still filled with arrogance and faint mockery. Clearly, they also recognized the number one person among the younger generation in Broken Rock City. Yo! Isn't this the number one person among the younger generation in Broken Rock City? To be able to obtain 4th place with your initial grade 3 mental energy, you've made me look at you in a new light. I originally thought that you would be ranked outside of the top 5. Su Qi, who was standing beside Su Yang, raised her pretty face and slightly curled her cherry lips as she sneered. Xuanai coldly glanced at Su Qi, who was practically looking down at her. She did not refute, but instead quietly found a green stone platform and silently observed the materials on it. However, her tightly clenched hands revealed that Xuanai's current state of mind was not as calm as she appeared on the surface. Seeing that Xuanai was unmoved, Su Qi also lost interest in continuing to ridicule her. She rolled her eyes and placed her attention on the green stone platform. Sigh. Our Broken Rock City's young arcanists are indeed inferior to Anding City and Yeyang City. Among the top 3, Yeyang City has 1 place, and Anding City has 2. Ouyang Yuntu looked at the light screen at the top of the golden platform and sighed in a somewhat upset manner. A bitter smile also surfaced on Master Ku Ya's face as he said, "It's already not easy for Xuanai to obtain 4th place. It's a little difficult to ask her to enter the top 3. Qiu Qiu only sat in his seat in silence. No one knew what the number one person in Broken Rock City was thinking. Dong! 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 2/3 of an incense stick's time had passed since Xuanai reached the peak. In the remaining 1/3 of an incense stick's time, arcanists successively arrived at the peak. The loud and clear sound of the bell continuously resounded in the training field, lingering in the air. Time also slowly passed along with the unceasing sound of the bell. There's not much time left. Why hasn't Zhuowen reached the peak yet? At this moment, Master Karaki could no longer remain calm. His gaze locked onto the figure on the 9,000th step. That figure was Zhuowen. There are still 1,000 steps left. There's only 10 breaths left. It looks like Zhuowen won't have the chance to reach the peak. Beside him, Xian Ling stole a glance at the incense stick nearby and realized that there was only a little bit left. She could not help but helplessly shake her head. New names were constantly being refreshed on the light screen at the peak. Soon, the number of names reached 99. There was only 1 spot left, and there was not much time left. There was only about 10 breaths left. Because Qiu Qiu had brought Zhuowen with him at the beginning, many people had placed a certain amount of attention on the late Zhuowen. Now that everyone realized that there were only 10 breaths left, and there were still hundreds of steps above Zhuowen, many people could not help but shake their heads and sigh. This kid is really unlucky. If he wasn't late, he might have been able to reach the peak within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. But now, it's impossible. In the VIP seats, Ouyang Yuntu stared at Zhuowen, who was still climbing, and could not help but shake his head and sigh. Even Master Kuya said regretfully, Zhuowen's talent is really good. Just now, from his aura, his mental energy actually made a breakthrough and reached perfect 2nd grade. With this kind of strength, he should have been able to reach the top of the golden stage within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. It's a pity that he missed too much time because he was late. Qiu Qiu frowned slightly. He always felt that Zhuowen was not ordinary. In his opinion, even if Zhuowen missed some time, he should still be able to reach the peak on time. There's not much time left. At my current speed, I'm afraid there's no hope of reaching the peak. On the steps, Zhuowen looked at the incense burner that had already burned to the bottom and frowned. Then, he helplessly muttered to himself, I can only rely on the thunder snake wings. Originally, I didn't want to display this thing, but now, I have no choice. With a sigh, Zhuowen formed a seal with his hands. Immediately, endless lightning surged out from his back. Subsequently, a pair of 10-meter-long lightning python wings grew out from his back. Chapter 277. Hanging by a thread boom. Like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, the spectators in the training grounds all stared in disbelief at Zhuowen, whose back had suddenly erupted with a pair of lightning snake wings. For a moment, the entire training grounds were in an uproar. No one had expected that the speed of the youth in front of them would suddenly increase. Moreover, the increase in speed was so inconceivable that it was even faster than Su Yang's peak speed. So fast! This little guy actually still had a trick up his sleeve. Qiu Chao's eyes suddenly lit up and a smile appeared on his originally serious face. Even Ouyang Yuntu and Master Ku Ye's eyes couldn't help but light up. Zhuowen's sudden burst of speed had stunned even the two of them. Master Ku Ye's eyes were quite sharp. He quickly calmed down and analyzed with a frown, I didn't expect Zhuowen to still have a trick up his sleeve. Although his speed has increased by quite a bit, there are only less than 10 breaths left. There are still many steps left. It will still be quite difficult for him to reach the top in time. Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou frowned slightly when they heard this. The two of them were ultimate Emperor realm experts. Their grasp of time and space was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Although Zhuowen's speed was indeed quite astonishing, the time he had was still too short. Is this little guy really going to be eliminated in the first round? The light in Qiu Chao's eyes slowly dimmed as he muttered to himself with a frown. Master Huiyun and Master Hanyun, who were sitting at the back, also looked at each other with a trace of astonishment in their eyes. They also didn't expect that a seemingly unremarkable youth would be able to explode with such speed at the last moment. This kid is a little strange. Is that pair of lightning wings on his back some kind of secret technique? How can it increase his speed by so much? Master Huiyun's gaze focused on the figure that was constantly flying upwards as he spoke with some doubt. It should be a kind of secret technique. Moreover, this kind of secret technique shouldn't be able to last for long. Otherwise, this brat would have used it at the very beginning instead of dragging it out until now. Master Hanyun nodded slightly and said with a faint smile. Their guesses were indeed reasonable. However, Zhuowen's thunder snake wings wasn't a secret technique. It was a cultivation technique transformed from the wind thunder sacred symbol. Zhuowen could use the thunder snake wings for as long as he wanted. The reason why Zhuowen only used the thunder snake wings at the last moment was naturally to make it look like a secret technique that couldn't be maintained for long. After all, the wind lightning sacred talisman was a supreme treasure of heaven and earth. There was no guarantee that someone would recognize it. Thus, Zhuowen had no choice but to be cautious. If it weren't for this layer of concern, Zhuowen would have long since entered the top 10 if he had activated the lightning snake wings. However, the time now is too short. With this brat's current speed, it's obviously impossible for him to reach the top of the Golden Word Summit in the last 10 breaths. Master Huiyun sneered. However, the mocking smile on Grandmaster Huiyun's face did not last for long before it instantly froze. This was because the figure on the Golden Word Peak had actually increased his speed in an unimaginable manner. His speed had already reached an unimaginable level, where it was as fast as lightning. This brat can actually increase his speed? How is this possible? This speed has already far exceeded Su Yang's peak speed. Master Huiyun couldn't help but pinch the handle beside his hand. His eyes slightly bulged as he involuntarily exclaimed in a low voice. Master Hanyun also couldn't remain calm at this moment. His eyes coldly stared at the slender figure on the Golden Word Summit that had increased his speed once again. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was quite ferocious. On his back, in addition to the pair of lightning snake wings, there was an even larger pair of lightning wings that appeared. This pair of lightning wings was below the lightning snake wings. When it extended, it was at least 5 feet long. On this pair of lightning wings, there were countless dragons that appeared. Sounds similar to the roars of dragons were constantly emitted. It was actually the lightning serpent wings that Zhuowen had just cultivated not long ago. However, this pair of lightning serpent wings was obviously much dimmer than the lightning snake wings. It even seemed a little incomplete. After all, Zhuowen hadn't obtained the lightning serpent wings for long and had yet to fully comprehend it. Naturally, it was quite strenuous for him to display it now. Although the lightning flood dragon wings were not complete, its effect was still quite heaven-defying. His speed had actually increased by several times. At this moment, he had crossed nearly 100 steps in a single breath. His speed was so fast that it was as if there was an afterimage of Zhuowen on every step, causing quite a few people in the audience to be dazzled. They could not tell who was the real body. At this moment, the 99 arcanists who were waiting at the top of the Golden Word Summit had already become a little impatient. When they realized that there were less than 10 breaths left, they all subconsciously thought that the 100th arcanist obviously couldn't make it in time. Su Yang, who had been standing on the platform, suddenly stepped forward and stared at a light figure under the light screen at the top. This light figure looked like Master Kuya. It was a clone that Master Kuya had created using his mind power. It was mainly used to judge this assessment. Master Kuya. There are less than 5 breaths left. The last place obviously can't make it in time. We can now announce the start of the second round of assessment. As soon as Su Yang's words came out, it also attracted the attention of the other arcanists present. They all focused their attention on this light figure and no one raised any objections. Obviously, they had already agreed with Su Yang's proposal. The rules were set by our Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild. It's not something that you can change just because you want to. Since there are still 5 breaths of time, we will have to continue waiting. Perhaps, the 100th ranked disciple might really arrive at the last moment? A clear voice sounded. Xuanai glanced at Su Yang and spoke in an indifferent voice. 5 breaths is too short. It's almost over in the blink of an eye. Do you really think that anyone can make it to the summit in such a short time? Just now, I saw the person closest to the summit, but he was still hundreds of steps away from the summit. Even I would need at least 30 breaths of time to reach such a distance. Otherwise, it would be impossible. It's just a waste of time now. Su Yang raised his head arrogantly and sneered with disdain at the corner of his mouth. Rumble. Just as Su Yang's words came out, a loud sound like countless lightning flashes and thunder suddenly swept over. All the arcanists on the platform were alarmed by this loud sound and turned their heads to look. They saw a slender figure with 4 lightning wings on his back. His entire body was almost enveloped in endless thunderbolts. Like a falling meteor, he suddenly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Then, he fiercely crashed into the corner of the platform. It was as if a mystic thunder had fallen from the 9th heaven. When he landed on the platform, the huge force almost cracked the ground within 100 feet around him. Countless gravel accompanied by air waves suddenly flew out. Some of the arcanists who were close to him were immediately thrown into a panic and dodged. I should have made it in time, right? A clear and melodious voice was slowly transmitted over. Soon after, a tall and slender figure appeared in front of everyone. The last one to arrive was naturally Zhuowen. The time just stopped at the last breath. Congratulations, you've just reached the requirement. You've passed the first stage. The light figure revealed a rare smile and said with a smile. Su Yang narrowed his eyes and his face was a little ugly. Just now, he had solemnly said that no one could reach the peak in the last 5 breaths. Now, in the blink of an eye, Zhuowen had descended from the sky. This was simply a slap in the face. Moreover, Su Yang's heart was filled with doubts as he looked at Zhuowen who had suddenly arrived. He remembered that the Zhuowen in front of him was the young man who had been late for a long time. Originally, he thought that the young man in front of him had missed too much time and would not be able to reach the peak in time. But now, he had abruptly appeared in front of him. This made the arrogant Su Yang shocked and angry. At the same time, his heart was full of confusion. He could not understand how the young man in front of him, whose mental strength was only at the level of complete level 2, managed to catch up and reach the top 100 with such strength when he was so far behind. Similarly, Xuanai was also puzzled. At this moment, Xuanai's cold eyes were filled with inexplicable surprise. Her cherry lips were slightly open as she looked at the young man who had arrived at the last moment. This Zhuowen clearly lagged behind by a lot at the beginning. How did he manage to enter the top 100? If I were in his situation, it would be difficult to even enter the top 100. Although she was puzzled, Xuanai did not pay too much attention to Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen's mental energy had not even reached the 3rd grade and was not a threat to her. Her attention was mainly on Su Yang, Su Qi, and Zhou Yi, the 3 advanced 3rd grade arcanists. After all, these 3 people were the strong opponents she had to face this time. Brother Zhuowen, you're really something. You actually managed to make it at the last moment. Your luck is really enviable. Not long after Zhuowen arrived at the peak, a familiar figure came to Zhuowen's side and patted him on the shoulder with a laugh. Zhuowen turned his head and happened to see Ouyang Yateo looking at him with a smile. The corners of his mouth curled as he smiled faintly and said, "It's just luck. All 100 people are here, so the first test ends here. Now, let's begin the second test." The glowing figure under the light screen suddenly spoke. The attention of all the arcanists on the platform was also attracted by the glowing figure and they all began to listen seriously. There are a total of 100 bluestone platforms on this platform. The materials for the seal-breaking crystal are placed on each platform. The second test is very simple. As long as you can refine the seal-breaking crystal within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, you will pass. The glowing figure's voice was loud and clear, and everyone heard it clearly. Zhou Yi, who had been silent all this time, suddenly cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Sir, the seal-breaking crystal is a type of crystal that can break seals. I'm sure there must be a certain use for the seal-breaking crystal that you want us to refine in the second test." The glowing figure looked at Zhou Yi with approval and said faintly, "Your guess is quite correct. The seal-breaking crystal is useful in the 3rd test. If you can't refine a high-grade seal-breaking crystal, then you will not be able to pass the 3rd test. Chapter 278. The Soul Incantation Tower. Do you see that tower over there? It's called the Soul Incantation Tower. It's a special treasure that's completely composed of spiritual energy. This tower was built by the Arcanist ancestors of Broken Rock City after thousands of years of accumulation. It contains an enormous amount of mental strength that can effectively temper an Arcanist's mental strength and increase their perception by a lot. The silhouette waved his right hand and pointed at the Tower of Light in the distance. His words were filled with pride. Tempering spiritual energy and increasing perception. This soul incantation tower is actually so miraculous. As soon as Master Kuya's silhouette spoke, it immediately caused quite a commotion on the platform. Many arcanists were secretly shocked. Even Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he clicked his tongue. Everyone knew how difficult it was to increase an arcanist's spiritual energy. They might be stuck for years, decades, or even their entire lives. This kind of bottleneck was even more difficult than a cultivator's bottleneck. As for the way to continue improving one's mental strength, it required a strong perception. The stronger one's perception was, the faster one's mental strength would improve. Correspondingly, one's cultivation speed would also be much faster. However, perception was innate and could not be changed. However, this so-called soul incantation tower could actually increase one's perception. This naturally caused these arcanists to be overjoyed. However, there's a powerful restriction outside the soul incantation tower. This restriction is strong enough to withstand the full-force attack of an ultimate Emperor Realm expert. It's basically impossible for you to break through it. If you want to break through this restriction, you'll need a high-quality seal-shattering crystal. So, if you can't refine a high-quality seal-shattering crystal, then you won't have the chance to enter the soul incantation tower. The silhouette paused when he reached this point. He scanned the crowd and continued, the third trial is to break through the soul incantation tower. There are 9 floors in the Soul Incantation Tower, and each floor has a corresponding spiritual energy pressure. The higher you go, the stronger the pressure. The Arcana Ceremony's final reward, the Grade 4 Origin Array, is placed on the 8th floor. If any of you reach the 8th floor first, you will be the winner of the Arcana Ceremony. The Grade 4 Origin Array will naturally belong to that person. When the silhouette mentioned the Grade 4 Origin Array, the breathing of the Arcanists on the platform quickened. Clearly, the ultimate goal of these Arcanists was this Grade 4 Origin Array. Even the arrogant siblings, Su Qi and Su Yang, revealed a trace of desire and greed on their faces. Those who were able to make it to the top of the gold stage were naturally elites amongst Arcanists. They had a thorough understanding of the might of a Grade 4 origin formation. The celestial star formation that they were competing in this time was a genuine Grade 4 origin formation. The fact that it could create such a small space out of thin air was enough to show how powerful a Grade 4 origin formation was. If no one has any objections, the second test will begin now. The light figure glanced indifferently at the crowd below. After which, he waved his hand and directly said, "Whoosh!" After the light figure finished speaking, the Arcanists on the platform quickly chose their own platforms and began to refine the seal-breaking crystal. Zhuowen, this little fellow, is truly astonishing. I never expected that he would be able to raise his speed to such an extent at the final juncture. In the last 10 breaths, he managed to cross several hundred steps and finally reached the top of the gold stage. In the VIP seats, Xian Ling slowly regained her senses and involuntarily exclaimed. Even Ouyang Shishui, who was beside Xian Ling and wanted to see Zhuowen make a fool of himself, still had a trace of shock in her beautiful eyes. She did not know how Zhuowen had done it. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen had already appeared at the top of the gold stage. How is it that this fellow is always able to do things that others can't even imagine at the final juncture? Muttering in a low voice, Ouyang Shishui's expression became rather complicated. Senior Qiu, the little fellow you brought is not simple. He actually crossed several hundred steps in 10 breaths. This speed is something that even the number 1 ranked Su Yang could not achieve. However, it's a pity that Zhuowen's mental energy cultivation is a little low. If he also had a 3rd grade mental energy, I'm afraid that he would have the strength to contend with Su Yang and the others. Ouyang Yuntu's eyes flickered as he spoke to Cho beside him with a hearty smile on his face. It's still too early to make a conclusion. Although this little fellow Zhuowen looks ordinary, if you interact with him for a long time, you will discover that he is truly unfathomable. Sometimes, even this old man finds it difficult to see through this little fellow. Cho narrowed his eyes. However, his words immediately shocked Ouyang Yuntu and Master Kuya, who were beside him. Is this child really so special? Even Senior Cho cannot see through him. Ouyang Yuntu could no longer remain calm. Whether it was strength or prestige, Cho in front of him was above him. He did not expect Cho to have such a high evaluation of Zhuowen. This was truly beyond Ouyang Yuntu's expectations. Don't underestimate this little fellow. This old man has a feeling that this child is very likely to become the biggest dark horse in this Arcana ceremony. A glint flashed in the depths of Cho Chao's eyes. Dark horse? You guys are too good at deceiving yourselves. That little fellow's mental energy is only at perfect 2nd grade. Brother, I'm afraid you're overthinking things if he can become a dark horse with such strength. Suddenly, an untimely voice abruptly rang out in the VIP seats, causing Cho and the others to involuntarily turn their heads to look. They just happened to see Master Huiyun sitting at the back with a sneer on his face. You think I'm overthinking things? Cho narrowed his eyes as his tone suddenly became low. Isn't that so? Among the younger generation of your Broken Rock City, only Xuanai is barely passable. As for the little fellow named Zhuowen you mentioned, he's really too weak. Do you think such a weak little fellow can win the Arcana ceremony? Don't you see that our Inding City's Su Yang and Su Qi are both accomplished 3rd grade Arcanists? With Su Yang and Su Qi's existence, this little fellow can't win the championship. Master Huiyun's face was full of mockery. You actually dare to be so arrogant in front of me? Old dog, you're quite happy barking, aren't you? Qiu Chao's gaze was slightly cold. Then, the yuan energy within his body exploded. Suddenly, the entire VIP seats fell into a sluggish state. Master Huiyun was shocked to find that his entire body could not move. An extremely strong pressure was firmly pressing down on his body. Whoosh! Qiu Chao's right hand suddenly squeezed. Master Huiyun's body involuntarily leaned forward and fell at Qiu Chao's feet like a dog eating shit. Naturally, Qiu Chou would not be polite. He lifted his foot and ruthlessly stomped on Master Huiyun's cheek. He indifferently said, "Old dog. Try barking a few more times if you have the guts." This sudden turn of events caused the entire VIP area to become incomparably silent. Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at Grandmaster Huiyun, who was being stepped on by Qiu Chou. They never imagined that Qiu Chou would actually have the guts to directly attack without any hesitation. However, after the shock, these people's eyes flashed with a trace of joy. After all, they were all people of Broken Rock City. Naturally, they were very unhappy when they saw Master Huiyun unscrupulously mocking the arcanists of Broken Rock City. Now that Qiu Chou directly attacked, it immediately caused many people to cheer in their hearts. Do you know who I am? I'm the vice president of the Settlement City's Arcane Guild. Don't tell me you want to start a war between our two cities. Master Huiyun immediately roared in anger. However, because his cheek was being stepped on by Qiu Chou, his words were a little unclear. Hee. You're just a small character. The City Lord of Settlement City will not rashly start a war between two super cities because of you. Speaking of this, Qiu Chou unceremoniously kicked Master Huiyun's cheek, causing his cheek to immediately swell up. The City Lord of Settlement City is still that bastard Lu Fan. If it's still the same, as long as I, Qiu Chou, go over and talk to him, that guy will still give me face. Qiu Chou sneered. His movements were not slow as he ruthlessly kicked again, causing Master Huiyun to grit his teeth and cry out in pain. Looking at Master Huiyun, who was constantly being trampled by Qiu Chou, Ouyang Yuntu and Master Kuya suddenly revealed a gloating smile. They knew Qiu Chou's character better than anyone else. He simply did things his own way and did not stick to a pattern. Qiu Chou was once in existence who even dared to kill the city lord of a super city. From now on, you better watch your mouth. Otherwise, this old man doesn't mind directly kicking you out of the VIP seats. After a few more kicks, Qiu Chou's right leg suddenly shot out and landed a kick on Grandmaster Huiyun's chest. The enormous force immediately caused Grandmaster Huiyun to fly backwards like a fallen leaf. In the end, Grandmaster Hanyun had to intervene to catch Grandmaster Huiyun's miserable figure. Otherwise, he would definitely have fallen flat on his back. You! Master Huiyun covered his extremely swollen cheek. His heart was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Moreover, he noticed that many people in the seats were looking at him with mocking gazes. This caused Master Huiyun's anger to reach a peak. Don't tell me that the kick just now wasn't heavy enough. Do you still want to kick me a few more times? Qiu Chou coldly smiled as his eyes were filled with an icy intent. Hearing this, Master Huiyun's expression could not help but turn sluggish. His face suddenly turned green. The strength of the person in front of him was simply beyond his expectations. Moreover, Qiu Chou did things without any scruples. Therefore, under Qiu Chou's glare, Master Huiyun's imposing manner immediately weakened. Humph! Didn't you have a lot of confidence in Zhuowen and think that he will be the dark horse of this arcane ceremony? Why don't we have a bet? Master Huiyun was really unwilling to back down like this. His eyes narrowed as he suddenly thought of an idea. Chapter 279. Chapter 279 The Comparison of Flames. Let's bet on the winner of this arcana ceremony. Didn't you think that Zhuowen would win? If Zhuowen wins the championship this time, then you lose. On the other hand, if my disciple Su Yang wins the championship, then I lose. What do you think? Do you dare to bet with me? Grandmaster Huiyun stared at Qiu Qiu and coldly said. Interesting. What are the stakes then? Qiu Qiu's eyes flickered as he asked in an indifferent tone. Seeing that Qiu Qiu was slightly moved, Huiyun sneered in his heart and said, the wager is a grade 4 origin array. If our Nding city loses, then this old man is willing to take out a grade 4 origin array. If you lose, then your Broken Rock City will have to take out another grade 4 origin array in addition to the one in the Spirit Curse Tower. What? A grade 4 origin array? When Master Kuya and Ouyang Yintu heard this, they immediately turned pale with fright. A grade 4 origin array was not an ordinary item. It was a priceless treasure. It was already very difficult for Broken Rock City to take out a grade 4 origin array in this arcane ceremony. Now, they actually had to add another grade 4 origin array to the wager. This price was too high. Senior Qiu, you can't agree to this bet. Although Zhuowen seemed to be talented, his mental strength was only at level 2 perfection. If he wanted to defeat Su Yang, who was at level 3 advanced success, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. Besides Su Yang, Su Qi and Zhuowen are also third-grade arcana masters. Zhuowen's chances of winning are too slim. Master Kuya's face was filled with anxiety. In his opinion, although Zhuowen's talent was not bad, he was too young, and his strength was definitely not comparable to Su Yang's. If he rashly agreed to this bet, they would definitely lose. However, Qiu Qiu shook his head slightly and said indifferently, you guys are underestimating Zhuowen too much. This old man believes that this brat is not ordinary. Moreover, it is very likely that he will become the dark horse this time. Therefore, this old man will accept this bet. Once Qiu Qiu said that, Master Huiyun's face immediately revealed a pleased smile. However, that smile on his already swollen face was even uglier than crying. This old man has never been humiliated like this before. Since this old man isn't your match, then I'll use this bet to make you lose everything. Grandmaster Huiyun coldly glanced at Qiu Qiu as he thought to himself. On the other hand, Master Kuya and Ouyang Yintu's faces were rather ugly. With Qiu Qiu's strength and status, they really did not dare to disobey him at all. Although they were extremely displeased by Qiu Qiu's sudden agreement, they could only swallow their anger. Sigh. Looks like I'll have to pay another grade 4 origin array. Master Kuya's expression turned even uglier when he thought about how their arcane guild would have to compensate for another grade 4 origin array after the arcane ceremony. From the beginning, he didn't think that Zhuowen had the strength and foundation to win the championship. He even felt that it was a little difficult for him to enter the top 10. On the Golden Peak stage, the light silhouette that Master Kuya manifested had a grave expression on his face. He could not help but shift his gaze to the stone platform at the corner of the platform. On the stone platform, a young man with a delicate and pretty face was staring at the formula in his hand as he pondered about how to refine this seal-breaking crystal. Is it really possible for this kid to defeat Su Yang? Even that girl Xuanai isn't confident. Can he do it? The light figure secretly shook his head and muttered bitterly. Boom! At this time, colorful flames suddenly appeared on the blue stone platform on the platform. Obviously, many arcanists had finished reading the recipe on the stone platform and were now starting to refine the origin crystal. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry to start refining the origin crystal. Instead, he scanned the arcanists around him. He was surprised to find that most of the flames that the arcanists on the platform were using were only ordinary flames. This kind of ordinary flame was considered the lowest quality flame energy. Above ordinary flames was the human flame, which was the human flame. When Zhuowen advanced to the Nirvana stage, the Nirvana demonic flame that he subdued was a type of human flame. Above the human flame was the earth flame, which was the level of the 9 heavens thunder inferno and the 3000 azure lotus flame that Zhuowen possessed now. Above the earth flame was the heavenly flame. It was said that the heavenly flame's power had reached a shocking level. Moreover, it also possessed a certain level of intelligence. The powerful heavenly flame could even burn an ultimate emperor stage cultivator to ashes in an instant. Legend had it that there were even more powerful flames above the heavenly flame, but Zhuowen had never seen them before. However, he had heard from Xiao He that the more powerful flames above the heavenly flame had all gained sentience. Their intelligence was no different from a human's, and they could even cultivate and grow like human cultivators. Only a small number of arcanists possessed powerful human flames. These arcanists who possessed human flames naturally became the focus of the other arcanists. CI. A ray of silver light that resembled moonlight suddenly flickered at the center of the platform. Then, a silver flame that resembled a bright crescent blossomed. That's the bright crescent forest flame. It's an extremely powerful human flame. It's ranked in the top 5 among all the human flames. I never thought that someone would possess such a powerful human flame. The moment the silver flame erupted, it completely attracted the attention of the other arcanists on the platform. For a moment, exclamations of surprise rose and fell. The arcanists who only possessed ordinary flames had envious looks in their eyes. The owner of the bright crescent forest flame was a tall woman with a cold expression. When Zhuowen's gaze landed on this slender woman, he could not help but be stunned. This was because this cold woman was Master Kuya's disciple, Xuanai. Xuanai's originally gloomy mood suddenly brightened up when she sensed the gazes directed at her. She lifted her jade-like neck slightly and could not help but focus her gaze on Su Yang, Zhou Yi, and Su Qi. She knew that her main competitors were the 3 people in front of her. The others were not even worth mentioning in her eyes. As if sensing Xuanai's somewhat hostile gaze, the beautiful Su Qi curled her lips and coldly muttered, "What's so great about that? You're not the only one with a human flame." As she spoke, Su Qi stretched out her slender hand and moved her slender fingers rhythmically. With a hiss, 5 flames suddenly sprang out from her 5 fingers. What was surprising was that these 5 flames were shaped like autumn maple leaves. They had 4 corners and were blood red in color. Hiss! It's actually the divine maple flame. This is a supreme-grade human flame. Its power is even above the bright crescent forest flame. It's a powerful flame that ranks in the top 3 among human flames. I never thought that I would be able to see such a flame. When the other arcanists focused their attention on the flames on Su Qi's 5 fingers, they could not help but gasp. They could not help but stare at the maple leaf-like flames in a daze. To arcanists, flames were like their limbs. Without the help of flames, it was impossible to refine crystals. The stronger the flame, the more nimble one's hands and feet would be. The speed and quality of refining crystals would greatly increase. There was no arcanist who did not want to possess an extremely powerful flame. Xuanai also saw the divine maple flame on Su Qi's fingers and her pretty face darkened. She originally thought that her bright crescent forest flame was extremely powerful among all human flames. She did not expect Su Qi to possess the even more famous divine maple flame. Zhou Yi. Let me take a look at your flames. I presume that with your identity as the #1 disciple in Yeyang City, your master wouldn't be stingy when it comes to flames. Su Qi no longer paid attention to Xuanai, who had an ugly expression not far away. Instead, she turned her head and looked provocatively at the silent Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi glanced indifferently at Su Qi and sneered. Your provocation is really childish. Since you want to see my flame, I might as well show it to you. With that, Zhou Yi stomped his foot, and the area several meters under his feet turned into a sea of fire. Then, Zhou Yi suddenly pinched the air with his right hand, and the surging flames in the sea of fire immediately revolved and condensed in his palm. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a 3-meter-long halberd. Clang! Zhou Yi suddenly stood, and the halberd, which was taller than him, was immediately inserted into the ground, standing firmly in front of everyone. At the same time, a surge of heat immediately rushed over, causing the surrounding air to boil. Heavens! It's actually the well-deserved #1 human flame, the Sky Fire Halberd. I didn't expect Zhou Yi to possess such a powerful human flame. It's really incredible. When the huge halberd, which was completely composed of flames, stood proudly in front of everyone. A trace of shock and sluggishness appeared on everyone's faces. The power of the sky fire halberd was extremely powerful. It was said that its power was comparable to ordinary earth fire. Xuanai and Su Qi's beautiful eyes suddenly widened. They looked incredulously at Zhou Yi, who was standing proudly, and the fire halberd beside him with its tip pointing to the sky. They could not help but fall into a daze for a moment. Obviously, the fame of the sky fire halberd was too great, which was why the two girls had such an intense reaction. Even Su Yang, who had been calm and collected, could not help but frown slightly. Zhou Yi did not take Su Qi's provocation seriously. Although Su Qi's mental strength was at the advanced 3rd level, she had just entered the advanced 3rd level not long ago. Her strength was not comparable to Zhou Yi, who had entered the advanced 3rd level long ago. What Zhou Yi really cared about was Su Qi's brother, Su Yang. Like him, Su Yang's mental strength had entered the advanced 3rd level long ago. He was probably already at the peak of the advanced 3rd level. Chapter 280. Shattering. Brother Zhou Yi is indeed worthy of being the #1 person among the younger generation in Yeyang City's arcane guild. Although this sky fire halberd is only a human fire, its powerful might is already comparable to an earth fire. Su Yang's expression was calm as he glanced at the sky fire halberd beside Zhou Yi and said indifferently, "Then what about brother Su Yang?" Zhou Yi looked back at Su Yang with slight provocation as he asked coldly, "Humph. My big brother is naturally not inferior to you. Although your sky fire halberd is the #1 human fire, my big brother has a genuine earth fire. His fire is of a much higher grade than yours." Su Qi pouted and rolled her eyes at Zhou Yi as she sneered. As soon as Su Qi said this, the platform immediately fell into silence. Then, everyone looked at the indifferent Su Yang in disbelief. Earth fire was not so easy to subdue. Moreover, earth fire was extremely rare. This made it so that arcanists who could possess earth fire were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Su Yang was so young, but he already possessed the earth fire that many arcana masters could only dream of. This truly shocked everyone present. Su Yang helplessly rolled his eyes at his sister. He knew that after Su Qi's trembling, it was unlikely that he would be able to hide the earth fire in his body. Thus, he gently squeezed his right hand, and a ball of blue flames burst out from his palm. What was strange was that the green-blue flames burned fiercely. The smoke and fire that slowly drifted out were like stars that flickered endlessly. It was as if the flames in front of them had become a starry sky. It's actually the star flame. This is a genuine earth fire. Moreover, it's one of the more powerful types of earth fire. Gazing at the flames that flickered like stars in Su Yang's palm, the scene immediately erupted into a clamor. The sound spread out like thunder. Zhou Yi's pupils shrank as he stared blankly at the star flame in Su Yang's hand. It took him a while to come back to his senses. His expression immediately became extremely ugly. Although the power of his sky fire halberd was no weaker than ordinary earth fire, that was only against ordinary earth fire. However, the star flame in Su Yang's hand was no ordinary earth fire. It was said that the star ignition flame was born at the peak closest to the stars. After thousands of years of condensing the power of the stars, it finally gave birth to the star ignition flame that burned endlessly like the stars. Among the many earth fires, the star ignition flame was quite famous and its power was also in the upper tier. It could be said that the power of the star ignition flame was a level higher than Zhou Yi's sky fire halberd. Among them, Xuanai was the most dejected. After seeing the flames of Su Qi, Zhou Yi, and Su Yang, she suddenly realized how big the gap between her and the three of them was. Her cultivation was no match for the three of them, and even her origin flames were inferior to theirs. This feeling of defeat made Xuanai feel as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. The feeling of helplessness in her heart grew even stronger. Zhuowen, who was standing in the corner, narrowed his eyes as he stared closely at the star ignition flame in Su Yang's hand. A strange smile that no one noticed appeared on his delicate face. Kid! Isn't your 9 wheels burning heavens formation lacking earth fire? There just so happens to be an earth fire right now. You have to make good use of it. Xiao Hei's unique sinister laughter suddenly rang out in his mind. His voice was filled with malicious intent. It looks like the third earth fire has delivered itself to my doorstep. The might of the 9 wheels burning heavens formation formed from 3 earth fires is probably enough to instantly kill an ultimate emperor realm cultivator. It might even be able to trap an ultimate emperor realm cultivator for a period of time. I, Zhuowen, must have this star ignition flame. As he muttered to himself, the smile on Zhuowen's face grew wider and wider. It's not easy to make a move now. Once we enter the Spirit Curse Tower, you can do whatever you want. However, you have to be careful. That Su Yang is not weak. I'm afraid he won't be easy to deal with. Xiao Hei warned in a rather serious manner. I know that. Zhuowen replied softly as he nodded slightly. His eyes narrowed. He could also sense that Su Yang was not simple. Among the 100 Arcana Masters, only the 4 of us possess earth fire above the mortal rank. The others basically only have earth fire that isn't that strong. Su Yang proudly raised his head and said indifferently as he felt the envious, jealous, and respectful gazes from all around him. That might not be the case. However, just as Su Yang finished speaking, a clear voice suddenly rang out. Then, with a hiss, another powerful flame burst out from the corner of the platform. Whoosh! 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 Everyone's gazes immediately turned towards the source of the flame. They saw a slender figure silently standing there with a strange black skull floating above his head. If one looked closely, they would see that the black skull was completely composed of black flames. This is also earth fire. What a strange earth fire, but the power it's displaying is so strong. A commotion suddenly broke out on the platform when they saw the strange black flames. Everyone stared at the black flames that had suddenly appeared with shock and uncertainty. They could sense that the black flames that had suddenly appeared were not any weaker than Xuanai's bright moon forest flames. Su Yang narrowed his eyes as he looked at the young man under the black skull. He coldly said, "So it is you. I did not expect that a mere perfect Tier 2 Arcana Master like you would actually possess earth fire." The young man who had suddenly erupted with the black flames was Zhuowen. This black flame was the Nirvana demon flame that Zhuowen had not used for a long time. Although Zhuowen's body possessed 2 other types of earth fire, it was sufficient to use earth fire to refine this Tier 2 Yuan crystal, seal-breaking crystal. Using the earth fire was like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Su Yang had a deep impression of Zhuowen. When the first hurdle was about to end and there were only 10 breaths of time left, he had confidently said that no one would be able to reach the peak in such a short period of time. However, Zhuowen had appeared in front of everyone like a slap to his face, causing him to make a mistake. Zhuowen completely ignored this arrogant Su Yang. Instead, he began to maneuver the Nirvana demon flame and began the first step of refining the Yuan crystal, refining one's soul. Su Yang's expression immediately became gloomy in the face of Zhuowen's disregard. A thread of killing intent was revealed deep within his eyes. He let out a cold snort and began to focus on the refinement of the seal-breaking crystal. Xuanai, who had been paying attention, had a complicated expression in her pretty eyes. She did not expect that Zhuowen, whom she did not pay any attention to from the beginning, actually possessed a kind of earth fire on his body. Moreover, from the looks of it, the strength of this earth fire was not weaker than her bright moon forest flame. There is no need to look around. Hurry up and begin refining the Yuan crystal. Time is not unlimited. The light figure suspended in the midair frowned slightly. He waved his hand and got the other Arcana Masters on the platform to immediately calm down. They began to quietly refine the seal-breaking crystal. The flames on the platform surged violently in an instant. 5 different colors appeared, appearing extremely gorgeous and colorful. This was a mixture of colors formed from the interweaving of many different flame colors. Of course, the most dazzling flame among the many flames was Su Yang's star flame. The stars that occasionally appeared were able to attract the attention and eyes of many people. When a third of the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed, Su Yang, who was standing at the very front, suddenly waved his sleeve. The dazzling star flame immediately dispersed, and a sparkling and translucent origin crystal suddenly appeared in his palm. "This, sir, I have already completed the refinement of the seal-breaking crystal." Su Yang nodded towards the light figure above. He raised the yuan crystal in his hand and presented it in front of the light figure. Su Yang's action immediately attracted the gazes of the other arcana masters on the platform. These gazes contained envy and jealousy. Looks like using the ground flame to refine the yuan crystal is indeed twice the result with half the effort. This Su Yang is actually able to complete the refinement of the seal-breaking crystal so quickly. At this moment, Zhuowen had just completed the step of refining one's soul. His eyes narrowed as he sized up Su Yang, who was standing in front with an arrogant expression, and softly muttered, Since the refinement is completed, let's stand here and wait. After an incense stick's time has passed, the quality of the yuan crystal will be tested by the collective members. If the quality is unable to reach the high grade, it will be directly eliminated. The light figure nodded slightly and spoke with a calm expression. Su Yang did not have any objections. He directly sat cross-legged by the side and closed his eyes to recuperate. He was confident that the quality of the seal-breaking crystal he had refined this time around would definitely reach the high grade. It might even surpass the high grade and reach the level of perfection. Time flew by quickly. Half an incense stick's time had already passed. The people on the stone platform had already completed the refinement process one after another. All of them sat cross-legged by the side like Su Yang and began to quietly wait for the remaining half an incense stick's time to pass. This included Zhou Yi, Su Qi, and Xuan Ai. However, there were still over half of the arcana masters on the platform who were still refining the seal-breaking crystal. This included Zhuowen. We have finally reached the final step of the refinement process. At this moment, Zhuowen's right hand was holding the Nirvana demon flame. There was a cluster of viscous liquid above the black flame. This liquid was the yuan liquid that was formed from the combination of the medicinal ingredients and the soul of the primordial beast. As long as he used the cold aura to condense this yuan liquid into a solid state, it would become a yuan crystal. Zhuowen revealed a relaxed smile on his face. He activated the extreme cold frost within the ice saint symbol. At this moment, only this extreme cold frost was left within his body. The heaven terminus cold chi that he had collected in the past had been swallowed by this extreme cold frost. After all, the extreme cold frost was the overlord-level existence amongst the Earth-class cold auras. It was naturally extremely repulsive towards other cold auras. Therefore, after obtaining this extreme cold frost, Zhuowen could only watch as the heaven terminus cold chi within the ice saint symbol that he had painstakingly obtained was completely swallowed by this extreme cold frost. This yuan liquid is refined using a human flame. I wonder if there will be a conflict if I use the extreme cold frost to freeze this Earth-class cold aura of a higher grade. Zhuowen muttered to himself with some uncertainty in his mouth. He slowly drew out a thread of extreme cold frost and began to approach the viscous yuan liquid above the black flame. Chi! In an instant, the yuan liquid on Zhuowen's right hand, along with the black flame, was completely frozen. Zhuowen was involuntarily stunned when he saw this situation. He did not expect that just a thread of extreme cold frost would be able to completely freeze the Nirvana demon flame. Crack! Chapter 281. Full open fire on the platform. More than half of the arcanists had already completed their refinement and were silently sitting on the platform. After all, these 100 arcanists were selected from thousands of others and could definitely be considered as the elites of this arcana ceremony. During the refinement process of the seal-breaking crystal, there would naturally not be any mistakes that would lead to failure. As for whether the quality of the seal-breaking crystal that they refined would be of high quality, that would depend on their level and performance. Crack! The sound of the yuan crystal shattering was very soft, but on this pin drop platform, it was like the beating of a drum. Immediately, it attracted the attention of the arcanists who had finished refining the yuan crystals and were sitting cross-legged on the ground. When everyone's gazes converged on the source of the sound, they were surprised to find that the unlucky one who had failed in refining was actually the young man who possessed the human fire, Zhuowen. Their surprised gazes revealed a gloating expression. What an unlucky fellow! What's the use of having the human fire if you don't have the strength? That would instead be a waste of a treasure like the human fire. Su Qi's pretty face immediately revealed a trace of ridicule as she unceremoniously mocked. Beside her, Su Yang only casually glanced at Zhuowen and no longer paid attention to him. Although Zhuowen's previous performances had moved him, it was only a so-so. To him, the gap between him and Zhuowen was as wide as a chasm. With his strength, there was simply no need for him to bother with the weak. Zhou Yi, who had been silent all this while, cast a side glance at Zhuowen in a somewhat thought-provoking manner. He sneered and no longer paid attention to him. To him, his main opponent was Su Yang and Zhuowen was just a small character. On the contrary, Xuanai, who disliked Zhuowen in the beginning, only sighed. After all, Zhuowen represented their Broken Rock City this time. Even if she did not like Zhuowen, she still hoped that Zhuowen could bring glory to Broken Rock City. However, from her point of view, this idea of hers had become too unrealistic. The people in the VIP seats who had been paying attention to the Arcana ceremony all let out a sigh after discovering that Zhuowen had actually failed in refining. Originally, Zhuowen's stunning performance in the first round and his use of the human fire in the second round had caused many people in the VIP seats to be quite optimistic about this young man. However, with the failure of the refinement, this optimism was replaced by disappointment. He failed. Master Kuya's face suddenly revealed a trace of bitterness as he muttered with a somewhat absent-minded gaze. Once Zhuowen failed, it was destined that the bet between Qiu Qiu and Master Huiyun would end prematurely. Their Broken Rock City's Arcana Guild would undoubtedly have lost. Master Kuya even wanted to cry when he thought of having to pay the price of a Grade 4 Origin array. There were only a few Grade 4 Origin arrays in their Arcana Guild. Now that they had to take out 2 of them at once, it was simply like digging a piece of meat out of their heart. Qiu Qiu frowned slightly. He also did not expect that Zhuowen would actually fail in the refining of the seal crystal fragment in the second round. This was something he did not expect. The result of the bet is already very obvious. This Zhuowen has been eliminated prematurely. You have lost. I'm afraid that your Broken Rock City will have to hand over another Grade 4 Origin array. Master Huiyun's face was full of pride and he could not help but laugh out loud. Old dog, you're laughing very happily. Do you feel like you're asking for a beating? Qiu Qiu's hawk-like sharp eyes stared coldly at Master Huiyun, causing the latter's smile to freeze. He was so embarrassed that he did not dare to laugh again. Obviously, the memory of Qiu Qiu's vicious beating just now was still fresh in his mind. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn hasn't passed yet. That means that Zhuowen still has a chance. Old dog, you're making a conclusion too early. Qiu Qiu coldly snorted and said somewhat irritably. Sigh. There's only a third of an incense stick left. It's impossible to finish refining the seal crystal fragment in such a short amount of time. Master Kuya's face was ashen at this time as he smiled bitterly. No one knows what the result will be until the last moment. Let's continue watching. Maybe Zhuowen can create a miracle. Qiu Qiu narrowed his eyes and said coldly. Although Master Huiyun, who was sitting in the back row, did not dare to say anything, his face was full of ridicule. In his opinion, Qiu Qiu's behavior was simply self-deception. On the bluestone platform, Zhuowen looked at the shattered crystal in his hand with a bitter smile. He could not help but mutter, it seems that the yuan liquid refined with human fire must be refined with human-level cold qi. Otherwise, the two extreme energies will inevitably become extremely unbalanced, causing the refined yuan crystal to shatter. At this point, Zhuowen turned his head and glanced at the incense burner not far away. He found that there was only a third of the incense stick left. He took a deep breath and muttered to himself, It seems that it's impossible to refine the seal crystal fragment in such a short amount of time with only the perfect second-level mental strength. It's necessary to raise my mental strength to the initial third level. I also need to use earth fire. Otherwise, it will be difficult to suppress the extreme cold. In the beginning, in order to not attract too much attention, Zhuowen's advanced third-level mental strength was suppressed to the perfect second level. Now, he had no choice but to raise his mental strength to the initial third level. Thinking of this, Zhuowen picked up another yuan nucleus on the bluestone platform. There were 3 sets of raw materials for the seal crystal fragment on the bluestone platform. After Zhuowen failed the first time, he naturally had a second chance. When Zhuowen picked up the yuan nucleus again, it immediately caused the platform to burst into laughter. There was only a third of an incense stick left. To refine the seal crystal fragment in such a short amount of time, perhaps only Su Yang, whose mental strength had reached the advanced third level and who also had earth fire in his hands, could do it. Does this kid still want to struggle before death? Only my big brother can refine the seal crystal fragment in such a short amount of time. Does this kid really think that with his perfect second-level mental strength and that impressive-looking but useless black flame, he can really complete the refinement in such a short amount of time? Su Qi's pretty face sneered. Xuanai could not bear to listen to this. After all, Zhuowen was an arcanist from Broken Rock City. Su Qi's ridicule immediately made Xuanai feel very uncomfortable in her heart. She then said coldly, "Can you shut up? Zhuowen didn't provoke you, so why do you have to hold on to his shortcomings and not let go?" "Oh. I just said a few words about that trash, and you, the so-called genius of Broken Rock City, jumped out to defend him. Why don't you take a look at yourself? Your strength is inferior to mine, and even your origin fire is inferior to mine. What right do you have to criticize me?" Su Qi's gaze turned to Xuanai, and her tone became even more arrogant and savage. "You." Xuanai was so angry that her pretty face flushed red. Just as she was about to retort, a tidal wave of mental energy immediately spread across the entire platform. What powerful mental energy! This mental energy is no longer weaker than mine. It has also reached the level of initial grade 3. Who is it? Xuanai tilted her head slightly and looked at the source of the mental energy. A figure with a focused expression suddenly appeared in her eyes. It's him. Zhuowen. Su Qi's attention was also attracted by the sudden appearance of the mental energy. When she realized that the person who had released this powerful mental energy was actually Zhuowen, she could not help but be stunned. It's actually initial grade 3 mental energy. This guy has been hiding his strength from the beginning? Su Qi was somewhat bewildered as she looked at the figure who was focused on the yuan nucleus in his hand. She could not help but exclaim. However, this trace of astonishment only lasted for a moment. Su Qi once again sneered and said, "So what if he has initial grade 3 mental energy? Even I cannot complete the seal crystal fragment in such a short amount of time, let alone this guy." Qi. The moment Su Qi's words left her mouth, the focused Zhuowen suddenly moved. His foot suddenly stomped on the ground. Soon after, an endless amount of lightning and flames entwined around it shot out from his back. Lightning and fire corresponded to each other, just like a couple dancing a dance. This is the earthly fire 9 heavens thunder flame. The smile on Su Qi's pretty face instantly froze when she saw the lightning and fire shooting out from Zhuowen's back. Soon after, she cried out in disbelief. The Arcana Masters on the platform, whose faces were originally filled with sneers, were now slightly agape. They stared blankly at the figure on the nearby stone platform, who was completely surrounded by the 9 heavens thunder flame. For a time, the platform was completely silent. After seeing the 9 heavens thunder flame, the originally calm and collected Su Yang's hands trembled. His face was no longer calm as he stared straight at the 9 heavens thunder flame on the surface of Zhuowen's body. His pupils had shrunk to the size of needles. The power of the 9 heavens thunder flame was not inferior to his star flame. In fact, it was even stronger than his star flame. He did not expect that the youth Zhuowen, whom he had always overlooked, would not only erupt with initial grade 3 mental energy at the last moment, but also use an earthly fire like the nine heavens thunder flame. At this moment, Zhuowen's expression was extremely focused. His initial grade 3 mental energy poured out and poured into the yuan nucleus in his hand. His fingers moved nimbly, and the nine heavens thunder flames swept out with his movements. It actually turned into a palm and swept up all the supplementary materials on the stone platform. The scorching temperature continuously refined the supplementary materials, turning them into liquid. While urging his mental energy to refine his soul, he also controlled the nine heavens thunder flame to refine the supplementary materials. Who would have thought that Zhuowen would actually multitask, carrying out the first step of refining his soul and the second step of extracting his soul at the same time? Multitasking, refining his soul and extracting his soul at the same time. At this moment, everyone who was paying attention to Zhuowen was stunned. Refining a yuan crystal was extremely dangerous. It required a careful and meticulous process. Step by step, it had to be carried out strictly. Otherwise, the medicine would be destroyed and the person involved would die. The gains would not make up for the losses. But now, Zhuowen had broken the conventional pattern. Not only did he not do it step by step, but he also carried out the most dangerous step of refining his soul and the most difficult step of extracting his soul at the same time. This was something that no one had ever heard or seen before. It was a refining method that no one had ever seen before. But now, it was right in front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 282. Refining complete. On the top platform of the Golden Summit stage, the intense clamor and uproar suddenly attracted the attention of everyone in the VIP seats. Lower grade 3. Zhuowen actually has mental power at the lower grade 3. I didn't expect this kid to have been hiding his strength all this time. Since the silhouette on the Golden Summit stage was Master Kuya's doppelganger, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise after seeing Zhuowen's mental power at the lower grade 3. Hearing this, Qiu Chao's eyes suddenly lit up and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He also didn't expect Zhuowen to have such a trick up his sleeve. Even he didn't expect Zhuowen to have been hiding his strength all this time. Master Huiyun, who was originally confident of victory, suddenly froze on his face. When he felt the sudden burst of mental power on the Golden Summit stage, he couldn't help but be bewildered as he muttered to himself, "This kid actually had such a trick up his sleeve. This is really beyond my expectations." However, even if he has mental power at the lower grade 3, I'm afraid it's very difficult to refine the seal-breaking crystal in such a short period of time. However, before Master Huiyun could finish his words, Master Kuya's voice sounded again. This time, the surprise in his voice was even stronger. Earth fire. Nine heavens thunder inferno. Zhuowen actually has such a powerful earth fire as the nine heavens thunder inferno in his body. This is really unbelievable. Master Huiyun's face twitched and his eyes suddenly became a little stiff. His lips trembled as he said, "It's actually an earth fire? Zhuowen actually has an earth fire in his body?" Even the star flame on Su Yang's body was painstakingly obtained by our arcane guild. This guy actually has a nine heavens thunder inferno that's not weaker than the star flame. However, before the shock in Master Huiyun's heart faded, Master Kuya's unique voice once again sounded in the VIP seats. At this time, his voice carried a trace of horror as if he had seen a ghost. "Motherfucker, Zhuowen actually performed soul refining and soul extraction at the same time and didn't fail. This is too unbelievable." Bang! After hearing Master Kuya's last sentence, Master Huiyun was so shocked that he used too much strength in his right hand and crushed the handle beside him. He immediately stood up and stared at the focused young man at the top of the gold summit. When he saw the young man's figure, boundless spiritual energy erupted from his entire body. His body was even enveloped by the nine heavens thunder blazing flame, which was a combination of thunder and fire. What was even more unbelievable was that the young man's hands were like flowing water. One of his hands was controlling the soul refining technique, while the other was controlling the soul extraction technique with the nine heavens thunder blazing flame. The two major steps of refining the crystal were being carried out by the young man at the same time. Furthermore, there were no signs of failure at all. Looking at the somewhat inconceivable scene at the peak of the mountain, Grandmaster Huiyun's pupils shrank once again, directly shrinking to the size of a needle. At this moment, his slightly trembling lips had already uncontrollably widened. Sizzle. At this moment, Zhuowen had completely entered a selfless state. From his arms to his fingers, from his mental energy to the nine heavens thunder blazing flame, everything was as nimble as flowing water as they continued in an orderly manner. Under this selfless state, the soul refinement and soul extraction between his hands were actually completed in an instant. Boom! At this moment, a glint flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. His right palm suddenly slammed onto the green stone platform, causing the yuan core in his palm to instantly crack open inch by inch. A monstrous bestial roar suddenly spread out, and a small and exquisite beast spirit appeared in the palm of his right hand. At the same time, Zhuowen's left hand was not slow at all. Like passing through flowers and leaves, his left hand reached into the core of the nine heavens thunder blazing flame. Following which, his hand clenched, and the ball of viscous liquid in the core of the flame was held in his palm. The soul refinement and soul extraction were actually completed at the same time. At this moment, there was only a little bit of incense left on the incense burner. There was not much time left. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen tossed both his hands. The beast spirit and the medicinal liquid simultaneously flew into the air. Zhuowen gently opened his right arm, and a deep blue cold air suddenly poured out. In an instant, it wrapped around the beast spirit and the medicinal liquid. The beast spirit and the medicinal liquid began to fuse and solidify within the extreme cold air. Dong! The loud and clear sound of a bell gradually rose in the entire training grounds, resounding in every corner. The glowing figure glanced at the lonely figure on the green stone platform, sighed, and shouted, "Time's up." Whoosh! At the same time, Zhuowen's feet pushed off the ground, and like a swallow, he leaped into the cold air in the air. His right hand reached out, and he pulled out a sparkling and translucent yuan crystal. At the last moment, Zhuowen had finally finished refining the seal-breaking crystal. Phew! It's really daunting but not dangerous. This little guy really hid his strength well. Not only does he have initial grade 3 mental energy, but he also has an earth fire, the nine heavens thunder blazing flame, in his body. What's even more unbelievable is that this little guy is too courageous. He actually dared to perform both the soul refinement and soul extraction at the same time. In the VIP seats, Master Kuya gently sighed, and said with a smile on his face. He didn't want Zhuowen to lose just like that. If Zhuowen lost just like that, he was afraid that Qiu Qiu and Master Huiyun would lose the bet, and the price of losing would naturally be the Arcane Guild compensating Qiu Qiu with a grade 4 origin array. This kind of loss was simply unbearable. Ouyang Yuntu slightly nodded, and his eyes were filled with amazement. He finally understood why Qiu Qiu admired the ordinary young man, Zhuowen. Huiyun, it seems that Zhuowen isn't simple. The result of your bet with Qiu Qiu is a little uncertain, isn't it? Master Han Yun, who was sitting next to Master Huiyun, glanced sideways at Master Huiyun, who had an ugly expression, and gloated. Humph! This kid has indeed exceeded this old man's expectations. However, in terms of mental energy, he's only at the initial 3rd grade, which is slightly inferior to Su Yang. In terms of origin source flames, Su Yang's star flame isn't inferior to this kid's 9 heavens thunder inferno. Therefore, the champion of this arcane ceremony will still belong to our Inding city, Master Huiyun coldly snorted and said indifferently. In the Spirit Curse Tower, it's not a competition of origin source flames. It's a competition of mental energy and willpower. Zhou Yi's strength isn't inferior to Su Yang's. Are you so confident that your Inding city's Su Yang will win? Master Han Yun was quite displeased with Master Huiyun's attitude and coldly mocked. We'll know who's stronger and who's weaker when the Spirit Curse Tower is opened. Master Huiyun didn't argue with Master Han Yun. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face as he said indifferently. Compared to the attitude of the big shots in the VIP seats, the audience in the other seats were in an uproar. Zhuowen's performance just now was too dazzling and amazing. It made many people feel as if their blood was boiling. Master Kuraki and Master Xianling, who were originally sitting in the more remote seats of the VIP seats, were the most shocked. Master Kuraki wasn't too surprised as he already knew some of Zhuowen's trump cards. However, Zhuowen's amazing performance of multitasking left him dumbfounded and amazed. On the other hand, Xianling was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. After a long while, she recovered and looked at Master Kuraki beside her and said, "Kuraki, no wonder you were so confident before the arcane ceremony. It turns out that your disciple's mental energy has already reached the initial 3rd grade. What a monster! Kuraki, your luck is too good. Even your disciple is so much better than mine." Under the gazes of many people, Zhuowen's expression was calm. He slowly walked to a place and sat down cross-legged. He began to silently wait for the next action of the glowing figure. After the glowing figure glanced at Zhuowen, it pointed at the edge of the platform with its right hand and said in a voice full of vicissitudes, "Although seal-breaking crystal isn't very difficult for everyone, it isn't that easy to refine a seal-breaking crystal of high quality. In the corner, there is a stone pillar that is as tall as a person. It is used to test the quality of the crystal. As long as the crystal is of high quality, 6 of the 10 red crystals on the pillar will light up. The higher the quality, the more red crystals will light up. If 10 of them light up, it means that the crystal is of perfect quality and the score is 10 points." As soon as the glowing figure finished speaking, everyone's gaze followed the direction of the glowing figure's finger. Sure enough, there was a stone pillar that was about 10 feet tall at the edge of the platform. There was a groove at the top of the stone pillar. It was obviously used to place the crystal. Above the groove were 10 red crystals, which should be used to test the quality of the crystal. Let's start according to the order of refining the crystal. Su Yang, you go first. The glowing figure spoke again. Su Yang raised his eyebrows and walked proudly towards the stone pillar. He then slowly placed the seal-breaking crystal in his hand into the groove of the stone pillar. In an instant, 9 of the red crystals above the groove lit up. The quality of the crystal refined by Su Yang this time was almost perfect. Such a result could not help but cause an uproar among many people on the platform. Not bad, just 1 point away from perfect quality. Su Yang, 9 points. Pass. The glowing figure looked at Su Yang in surprise and then spoke again. Next up were Zhou Yi, Su Qi, and Xuan Ai. Zhou Yi and Su Qi's crystal quality reached 8 points, while Xuan Ai's crystal quality reached 7 points. As time gradually passed, the arcanists on the platform placed their crystals into the stone pillar one by one. There were happy and sad expressions on their faces. In just an hour, the 100 arcanists had finished their tests. When the 99th arcanist saw that only 5 red crystals had lit up on the stone pillar, he gloomily took the crystals and left. Lu Yang, 5 points. Fail. Eliminated. Next up, Zhuowen. When the glowing figure called out Zhuowen's name, all the arcanists on the platform turned their heads and focused their gazes on the calm-looking young man. They really wanted to know if the seal-breaking crystal that the young man in front of them had refined at the last moment was of superior quality. Even Su Yang narrowed his eyes when he heard Zhuowen's name. He couldn't help but focus on Zhuowen. Chapter 283. The third stage. At this moment, Zhuowen's every move attracted the attention of almost everyone on the platform. Even the VIP seats were silent. Everyone was looking forward to seeing if the quality of the seal crystal that Zhuowen had hurriedly produced could reach a high grade. After all, Zhuowen's refinement technique on the platform just now was really too shocking. Refining the soul and extracting the soul were two completely unrelated steps, yet they were actually carried out by the youth before them at the same time. This extremely audacious refinement technique really shocked many people, but at the same time, it also aroused the suspicion of some people. In such a short period of time, with such a shocking refining method, just what level could the quality of the refined crystals reach? Bang! Taking large strides, Zhuowen arrived in front of the stone pillar. Without any hesitation, he directly pressed the seal crystal fragment in his hand into the groove at the top of the stone pillar. Under everyone's expectant gazes, the stone pillar suddenly trembled. Soon after, the 10 red yuan crystals in the groove actually completely lit up. The red light was as dense as blood. The red light emitted by the 10 red crystals suddenly condensed together at this moment. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, it converged into a red pillar of light that was so thick that it would take a person to wrap their arms around it. It shot straight into the sky and dyed the sky within the training field blood red. 10 red crystals lit up at the same time. Perfect quality. The glowing figure's right hand trembled, and his body could not help but stagger. His eyes stared straight at the blood-red pillar that almost broke through the sky, and he could not help but exclaim loudly. All the arcanists on the platform raised their heads to look at the sky as disbelief filled their faces. They had never thought that Zhuowen, who had only used a third of an incense stick's worth of time to refine the soul and extract the soul at the same time, would be able to refine the seal-shattering crystal to a perfect level. Su Qi, whose face was originally full of ridicule, had long since been replaced by shock. Her beautiful eyes stared blankly at the blood-red pillar of light that shot straight into the sky, and she suddenly fell silent. Su Yang's face was still indifferent, but the tightly clenched fists under his sleeves exposed the turmoil in his heart. Huh! A perfect quality seal crystal. Zhuowen, this brat, is really good. In such a short period of time, he was actually able to refine a perfect quality origin crystal. This brat's talent is really terrifying. In the VIP seats, Cho Cho suddenly laughed loudly, his face full of joy. Meanwhile, Ouyang Yuntu and Master Kuya were also very excited. After all, Zhuowen was representing Broken Rock City in this Arcana ceremony. The more outstanding his performance was, the more glory they would feel. They didn't want the spotlight to be stolen by the arcanists from Nding City and Yeyang City. Are you kidding me? All 10 red crystals were lit up, and the quality was perfect. This Zhuowen. Master Huiyun suddenly clenched his fists. The expression on his face could no longer conceal the shock in his heart. His eyes bulged as he stared at the blood-colored light pillar that pierced through the sky in the training field. In the end, he muttered to himself. Master Han Yun, who was standing beside him, couldn't remain calm either. The shock on his face was even greater than Master Huiyun's. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Old dog Huiyun, didn't you say at the beginning that Zhuowen would lose for sure? Now open your dog eyes and take a good look. Not only did this brat Zhuowen complete the refinement of the seal crystal in the last 1/3 of the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, but now the quality of the seal crystal he refined has reached a perfect level. Cho Cho suddenly turned his head, looked at Master Huiyun behind him with a mocking gaze, and laughed mockingly. Master Huiyun was stunned when he heard Cho Cho calling him an old dog. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't stand Cho Cho calling him such an insulting name in public. However, because he was afraid of Cho Cho's strength, he could only swallow it down and didn't dare to say a word. Moreover, the quality of the seal crystal refined by Zhuowen had reached a perfect level. It was even better than his disciple Su Yang's. This was an indisputable fact, and he couldn't refute it. After thinking about it, he could only remain silent and sulk by himself. Looking at Master Huiyun's unlucky appearance as if he had eaten a fly, Ouyang Yuntu and Master Kuya couldn't help but feel happy. Master Huiyun relied on his 2 advanced grade 3 disciples to be extremely arrogant in the VIP seats. If it wasn't for Cho Chow's sudden intervention, they might have been ruthlessly ridiculed by Master Huiyun without daring to refute. The blood-colored light pillar that pierced through the sky disappeared in a flash. When the light pillar disappeared, Zhuowen reached out with his right hand and retrieved the seal crystal from the groove on the stone pillar. Then, he walked back to his original position with a calm expression. Zhuowen wasn't surprised by this result. After all, the seal crystal this time was refined with the help of the 9 heavens thunder blazing flame and extreme Arctic frost. In particular, extreme Arctic frost was the overlord of all the earth-grade cold energies. Zhuowen had already guessed that he would be able to refine a perfect level yuan crystal. A total of 60 people passed the second stage. The remaining 40 people were eliminated because the quality of their yuan crystals didn't reach a high level. The glowing figure scanned the people on the platform and said in a calm tone. After hearing this, Zhuowen noticed that many people in the group were dejected and had vexed expressions. Obviously, these people were the Arcana Masters whose yuan crystals didn't reach the standard. It's really difficult. Although I can refine a complete seal-breaking crystal, it's still a long way to go before it reaches the upper grade. Sigh. I'm really unlucky. The yuan crystal I refined was at the peak of the medium level. It was just a little bit away from reaching a high level. What a pity. Looks like I'm not fated to participate in this year's Arcana ceremony. At the same time, many people began to complain. For a moment, the platform was filled with people. Those who have been eliminated can't stay in the celestial star formation for long. I'll now teleport all of you out. The glowing figure completely ignored the complaining Arcana Masters on the platform. He waved his sleeve and 40 rays of starlight suddenly descended from the stars in the sky, enveloping the eliminated Arcana Masters. In the blink of an eye, the eliminated Arcana Masters disappeared from the platform amidst the starlight. After sending off the eliminated Arcana Masters, the glowing figure looked down at the crowd from the sky. His indifferent voice sounded again, "Congratulations everyone. Since you've all passed the second stage, I'll now announce the third stage. As I said before, the third stage is the Soul Curse Tower on the other side. The final reward is on the 8th level. Whoever reaches the 8th level first will be the final winner. If everyone understands the rules of the third stage, then the third stage will now begin. The seal in front of the Soul Curse Tower can be broken by using a seal crystal. You may enter the tower directly. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that the spiritual pressure inside the Soul Curse Tower is extremely terrifying. If you really can't endure it, it's best to act according to your strength." The glowing figure's words were like a bomb that ignited a wire, causing a huge commotion on the platform. The eyes of the remaining Arcana Masters on the platform were filled with anticipation and desire. After all, the Soul Curse Tower was indescribably beneficial to Arcana Masters. Even if they couldn't win, being able to cultivate inside would still bring them great benefits. Whoosh! 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 For a moment, many of the Arcana Masters on the platform couldn't wait any longer. They activated the mental strength in their bodies and wrapped it around their bodies. Then, like arrows released from a bow, they shot toward the Soul Curse Tower in the distance. When the Arcana Master at the front was about to touch the seal of the Soul Curse Tower, he immediately raised the seal crystal in his hand and released the power of the crystal to his heart's content. Ripples immediately appeared on the seal, and then a hole as tall as a person appeared, allowing the Arcana Master to enter the other side of the seal. However, the hole only existed for a very short time. As soon as the Arcana Master passed through the seal, it disappeared. Obviously, this was set up to prevent Arcana Masters who relied on a seal crystal to take advantage of the situation. Su Yang, who was standing at the edge of the platform, glanced at the Soul Curse Tower in the distance. He suddenly turned around and stared at Zhuowen with narrowed eyes, coldly and arrogantly saying, "You're called Zhuowen, right? At such a young age, you already have the mental strength of an initial 3rd grade. At the same time, you also possess a powerful earth fire like the 9 heavens thunder inferno flame. I'm afraid you're the number 1 person among the younger generation of the Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild. You're really scheming. You've been hiding your strength from the beginning. However, being able to refine a perfect seal crystal doesn't mean anything. Once we enter the Soul Curse Tower, I'll let you know that the gap between you and me is still very big." Xuanai, who was not far away, heard Su Yang's words. Her pretty face also turned deathly pale. Then, her cold and beautiful eyes stared at Zhuowen with a complicated expression. She finally knew why Zhuowen was able to face her with such a calm expression 5 days ago. It was because the young man in front of her was not weaker than her. Or rather, he was slightly stronger than her. Thinking of this, Xuanai's mouth revealed a self-mocking smile. Oh? Are you done? If you're done, then hurry up and get lost. Don't block my way, Zhuowen said lazily as he glanced indifferently at Su Yang, who felt so full of himself. Su Yang and Su Qi, who was beside him, could not help but be stunned when they heard this. They did not expect the young man in front of them to not give Su Yang any face. Instead, he directly scolded him. "You." Su Qi's pretty face was filled with anger. She was about to step forward and teach this arrogant young man a lesson when she was stopped by Su Yang. At this moment, Su Yang narrowed his eyes and looked straight at Zhuowen. He coldly said, "I hope you can still be so arrogant after we enter the Soul Curse Tower. Little sister, let's go first." With that, Su Yang pulled Su Qi and rushed toward the Soul Curse Tower. Chapter 284. Entering the Soul Curse Tower, Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he watched Su Yang and Su Qi enter the Spirit Spell Tower. He took a step forward and shot towards the Spirit Spell Tower like a bolt of lightning. When he was still 10 miles away from the Soul Curse Tower, Zhuowen's figure came to a halt as he was blocked by a transparent restriction. For a moment, transparent ripples appeared in front of him. What a powerful restrictive power! Zhuowen's face couldn't help but be surprised as he touched the restriction in front of him. It's just as Master Kuya said. Only an Ultimate Emperor realm expert can forcefully break through a restriction like this. It's impossible for them to break through it. Looks like I'll need a seal crystal to do so. As he spoke, Zhuowen took out the seal-breaking crystal from his bosom and poured his yuan energy into the crystal. Instantly, a powerful energy fluctuation burst out from the crystal. What surprised Zhuowen was that when the ripple of energy approached the restriction in front of him, it was like the most corrosive acid. A hole as tall as a person instantly appeared in the restriction. Without any hesitation, Zhuowen took a step forward and charged into the hole. After passing through the restriction, Zhuowen arrived in front of the Soul Curse Tower. The Soul Curse Tower had a total of 9 floors. Every floor was dozens of meters tall. Mental energy flowed on the surface of the tower like colorful streams of light, emitting a colorful glow. The door to the first floor was 10 meters tall. It was wide open on both sides. At a glance, the inside of the door was pitch black, making it look rather eerie and strange. Zhuowen stood in front of the door and quietly stared at the majestic Soul Curse Tower. His heart was filled with shock. From Master Kuya's introduction, the Soul Curse Tower was actually built purely from the interweaving of mental energy. Just how much mental energy would be required to build such a majestic Soul Curse Tower? Swoosh! 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 An ear-piercing sound immediately rang out beside Zhuowen. Numerous figures passed by Zhuowen, impatiently rushing through the door. Clearly, these participants could no longer contain the excitement in their hearts. They wanted to see the splendor of the Soul Curse Tower. It's said that the Soul Curse Tower is a strange treasure created by countless Arcanist ancestors in Broken Rock City. The mental energy of this treasure is so enormous that it's not weaker than the legendary 5th-grade Arcana Master. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fanaticism as he muttered to himself. He had only heard of the existence of a grade 5 Arcana Master in legends. It was said that even the ruler of the Qing Xian Empire, the Qing Emperor, did not dare to slight an Arcana Master of such strength. However, grade 5 Arcanists were too rare. Even the president of Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild, Master Kuya, was only at the peak of the lesser success of grade 4. Moreover, Master Kuya had been stuck at the lesser success of grade 4 for more than 10 years without any progress. It could be seen how difficult it was to advance one's mental strength after reaching grade 4. Let's go in. Kid, the Soul Curse Tower is indeed a good thing. It gathers the mental energy of countless Arcanists and has the effect of increasing one's perception. Furthermore, I can sense that there are many hidden benefits within the Spirit Curse Tower. Black's excited voice immediately sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded slightly and took a step into the door. Once he entered, Zhuowen suddenly felt a strong mental energy pressure rush towards him. It instantly enveloped him. Zhuowen couldn't help but feel his body sink and his knees bend slightly. As expected of the Soul Curse Tower, the mental energy pressure on the first floor is actually not weaker than that of an initial Grade 2 Arcana Master. If an initial Grade 2 Arcana Master were to enter the first floor, they would probably have a hard time. With a shake of his shoulders, the Yuan power in his body erupted and easily dispelled the mental energy pressure on his body. The first floor wasn't very big. It was about the size of Vine Armor City's God's Stone Plaza. There weren't many people on the first floor. Only a few figures were walking slowly and unsteadily. It was obvious that they were the weakest among those who entered the Soul Curse Tower this time. Their strength was around the initial Grade 2 Arcana Master. In the center of the first floor was a flight of steps made of limestone. The steps led to the second floor. Zhuowen took a step forward and quickly walked towards the center of the steps. Under the envious gazes of the unsteady figures, Zhuowen arrived in front of the steps. There wasn't a trace of fatigue or burden on his face. When he arrived in front of the steps, Zhuowen discovered that the steps were actually formed by the interweaving of pure mental energy. The surface of the steps flickered with a golden light and overflowed with colorful lights. It gave off a somewhat unreal feeling. Moreover, the mental energy pressure on the steps was much denser than the other places. It seems that the Soul Curse Tower's mental energy pressure is mainly on the steps. I'm afraid this is the Soul Curse Tower's test. If I can cross it, I will successfully enter the next floor. If I can't, I will be eliminated. After glancing at the steps, Zhuowen took a step forward and directly stepped onto the steps. In an instant, the countless amounts of mental energy on the steps were like compressed air as they continuously converged on Zhuowen's body. The terrifying power it produced was almost enough to cause the air to explode. With a cold snort, Zhuowen slightly shifted his shoulders. The Yuan power in his body surged out and formed a thin layer of Yuan power on the surface of his body. The mental energy that was like a tidal wave was immediately blocked by the Yuan power on the surface of Zhuowen's body. Thud thud thud. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen stepped onto the steps and disappeared at the end of the first floor. On the first floor, the few Arcana Masters who were walking unsteadily stared blankly at the youth who had easily stepped onto the steps. That must be Zhuowen. The youth who refined the perfect seal crystal and suppressed Su Yang in the second round? Sigh. He's quite a bit younger than us, but his mental energy cultivation is far above ours. However, when I saw Zhuowen step onto the steps, why didn't I sense any mental energy being released from him? That's right. I didn't sense any mental energy undulations from Zhuowen's body either. Instead, a layer of Yuan power appeared on the surface of his body and easily blocked the mental energy pressure from the steps. At this point, the few Arcana Masters were suddenly shocked as if they had thought of something. They couldn't help but look at each other and exclaim, "The Yuan power on the surface of Zhuowen's body is actually Yuan power. He actually used Yuan power to block the mental energy pressure from the steps. Doesn't this mean that his martial arts realm isn't weak at all?" After entering the second floor, Zhuowen discovered that there were a lot more people on the second floor than on the first floor. Moreover, the mental energy pressure on the second floor was many times stronger than on the first floor. It should have reached the level of advanced Grade 2 Arcana Masters. Those who were still lingering on the second floor were basically advanced Grade 2 Arcana Masters. Perhaps they would have an easier time on the first floor, but it would be much more difficult on the second floor. This was because the mental energy pressure on the second floor was no weaker than that of an advanced Grade 2 Arcana Master. Upon reaching the second floor, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the mental energy pressure on the second floor was much stronger and purer than on the first floor. Moreover, Zhuowen was delighted to discover that other than the mental energy pressure that was constantly pressing down on him, there was also a trace of strange and refreshing energy on the second floor. This trace of strange energy was like a scanning lens. It passed through the surface of Zhuowen's body and seeped into the Naiwen Palace between his eyebrows. A refreshing feeling suddenly rose in Zhuowen's mind. It was as if he had suddenly taken a cold shower on an extremely hot summer day. It was extremely refreshing. This energy. Silently feeling the refreshing energy in his mind, Zhuowen squinted his eyes and muttered to himself in pleasant surprise. Hee hee. This is the most precious benefit of this spirit curse tower. It contains the comprehension of countless arcana masters. This thing can greatly increase your comprehension ability and allow you to break through the shackles in front of you as soon as possible. Xiao Hei's voice sounded in a timely manner. Silently feeling the refreshing energy and the refreshing feeling that seeped into his body, Zhuowen could also clearly feel that his mind's thoughts were much lighter than before. Clearly, this was a benefit brought about by the mental energy. However, this feeling was not very strong. Clearly, the mental energy on the second floor was not very strong. After all, the mental energy on the second floor was only at the level of advanced grade 2 Arcana Masters. The amount of mental energy it could provide was definitely not much. With my mental energy of advanced grade 3 Arcana Masters, the amount of mental energy that the mental energy on the second floor can provide is probably too little for me. Zhuowen lowered his head and muttered to himself in thought. The mental energy on the first floor of the Spirit Curse Tower is at the level of advanced grade 2 Arcana Masters, while the second floor is at the level of advanced grade 2 Arcana Masters. I'm afraid that only the mental energy on the fifth floor will be able to obstruct you to a certain extent. The mental energy on the fifth floor is not weaker than that of an advanced grade 3 Arcana Master. The mental energy on the fifth floor will most likely be of great help to you. Xiao Hei's voice sounded in his mind once again as she analyzed the situation in a clear and logical manner. You're right. However, according to the pattern you've described, wouldn't the mental energy on the 8th floor be at the level of grade 4 Arcana Masters? That level of mental energy is something that even I, as an advanced grade 3 Arcana Master, would find difficult to endure. Suddenly thinking of something, Zhuowen suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. It's just mental energy. It's not like a level 4 Arcana Master has personally descended. I'm afraid the mental energy on the 8th floor isn't that frightening. However, it shouldn't be something that an ordinary grade 3 Arcana Master can endure. However, you have quite a few trump cards on you. Entering the 7th floor shouldn't be a problem. As for the 8th floor, it's a bit of a stretch. Xiao Hei's voice also revealed a trace of helplessness in his mind. Clearly, the difficulty of the Spirit Curse Tower had exceeded her expectations. Chapter 285. Advanced Grade 3 Inch Breakthrough to Perfect Grade 3. The further one's mental energy is, the harder it is to break through. Breaking through to Perfect Grade 3 won't be so easy, Zhuowen said helplessly as he narrowed his eyes. Even so, this Spirit Curse Tower is an opportunity for you. After being tempered and baptized by the mental energy pressure here, as well as the endless amount of enlightenment energy gushing out from the tower, you will be able to raise your mental energy for a short period of time. All you need is an opportunity. After all, you are not far from perfect grade. Xiao Hei said casually. Yes. Even so, the enlightenment energy on the second level is too little. If I want to break through, I will need to reach the 5th level of the Spirit Curse Tower. After replying casually, Zhuowen scanned his surroundings. Soon after, he locked onto a flight of stairs in the far left corner. This flight of stairs should be the passageway to the 3rd level. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen suddenly stomped his foot. Immediately, the soles of his feet overflowed with electricity. It was rather dazzling in the 2nd level, and a thunderous rumble suddenly sounded out. The other contestants, who were originally concentrating on the 2nd level and silently absorbing the enlightenment energy on this level, were naturally awakened by Zhuowen's rather loud commotion. Their faces revealed looks of anger. However, when they saw that the owner of the noise was Zhuowen, who had performed spectacularly in the 2nd stage, none of them dared to utter a word. They knew that although the youth before them looked ordinary, he possessed powerful initial grade 3 mental energy. At the same time, he also had an earth fire like the 9 heavens thunder blazing flame in his body. In their opinion, Zhuowen's strength and talent were already comparable to Su Yang, Su Qi and Zhou Yi. If not for the fact that Zhuowen was only around 17 or 18 years old, his mental energy level would not be much weaker than the three of them. In fact, he might even surpass them. Zhuowen ignored the respectful gazes directed at him from the surroundings. His speed was extremely fast. Like a bolt of lightning, he directly entered the stairs and instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. The area of the third floor was much larger than the first and second floors, but the number of people was much smaller. Those who could make it to the third floor were all arcanists above grade 2 perfection. They could be considered the elites among the participants of this arcana ceremony. Zhuowen. After roughly sweeping a glance at the situation on the third level, Zhuowen planned to directly rush up to the fourth level. However, he did not expect that a voice would suddenly call out to him from behind. Subconsciously turning his head, Zhuowen saw a young man wearing a purple robe. The young man had a gentle expression, fair skin, and looked rather confident and handsome. He was the disciple of Master Mystic Spirit, Ouyang Yateo, and also the genius sent by the City Lord's mansion. In fact, Ouyang Yateo was rather unlucky. Originally, with his grade 2 perfection mental energy, he would have performed well in the Arcana ceremony. However, he did not expect that this year's Arcana ceremony would attract the geniuses of the two super cities, Nding City and Yeyang City, to participate. The geniuses sent by these two super cities could be said to be monstrous. They actually had the strength of an advanced grade 3 perfection. With such monstrous geniuses in front of him, even though Ouyang Yateo's strength was not bad, it was obvious that he was rather mediocre in comparison. Looking at Ouyang Yateo, who was sweating profusely and panting behind him, Zhuowen could not help but be taken aback. Immediately, he turned around and walked to Ouyang Yateo's side. The mental energy in his body violently surged out, forming a small barrier between the two of them to prevent the erosion of the mental energy pressure. Ouyang Yateo's expression relaxed as he felt the mountain-like pressure on his body recede like a receding tide. Soon after, he looked at the young man in front of him with a complicated expression and said, "Thank you, Brother Zhua. I really did not expect Brother Zhua to be hiding such powerful strength. Back then, I had misjudged you." Zhuowen waved his hand and said indifferently, "It was not my intention to hide my strength. It was that old man Sangmu who forced me to hide my strength in order to gain a slight advantage in the Arcana ceremony. I just don't know why Brother Ouyang asked me to stop." With Ouyang Yateo's strength, it would be difficult for him to continue to advance to the fourth floor. Zhuowen knew that Ouyang Yateo suddenly stopped him not to ask him to help him enter the fourth floor. This was because Ouyang Yateo's strength was only at complete grade 2. Even if Zhuowen helped him enter the fourth floor, it would be difficult for him to withstand the terrifying mental energy pressure on the fourth floor. Ouyang Yateo's expression was slightly hesitant. He gritted his teeth and said, "Zhuowen, Master Tsangmu is an arcanist belonging to our Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild. As Master Tsangmu's disciple, your participation in the Arcana ceremony is actually representing the arcanists of Broken Rock City. Moreover, I can feel that your strength is definitely stronger than Xuanai. I, Ouyang Yateo, hope that you can represent Broken Rock City to obtain the top 3 in this Arcana ceremony. For this, you will gain the friendship of our city governor's mansion." At this point, Ouyang Yateo suddenly cupped his hands respectfully and said in a rather solemn manner. Zhuowen was startled. He immediately understood Ouyang Yateo's meaning. After all, this Arcana ceremony was held by Broken Rock City. If the top 3 spots of this Arcana ceremony were to be occupied by the arcanists of Nding City and Yeyang City, Broken Rock City would really lose a lot of face this time. As the manager of Broken Rock City, the prestige of the city governor's mansion would probably decline. As a direct descendant of the city governor's mansion, Ouyang Yateo had obviously considered this point. Don't worry. The reward for this Arcana ceremony is a grade 4 origin array. I have already reserved that item long ago. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled slightly as he said with a faint smile. Ouyang Yateo was startled when he heard this. Then, he said bitterly, "Brother Zhua, although your mental energy has reached the level of initial grade 3, Zhou Yi from Yeyang City and the Su siblings from Nding City are all advanced grade 3 arcanists. Among them, Zhou Yi and Su Yang have been in the advanced grade 3 Arcana ceremony for a long time. I'm afraid that they have already reached the peak of the advanced grade 3 Arcana ceremony. Only Su Qi has just reached the advanced grade 3 Arcana ceremony not long ago. His realm has yet to completely stabilize. With Brother Zhuo's strength, you should be able to barely defeat Su Qi. As for Zhou Yi and Su Yang, it will be a little difficult. Brother Zhuo, you should act according to your ability. As long as you obtain the third place, you will be able to more or less restore the prestige of Broken Rock City. Brother Ouyang. This time, there are not only 3 advanced grade 3 arcanists, but 4. Zhuowen suddenly turned his head and smiled as he stared at Ouyang Yateo in front of him. 4. Brother Zhuo, don't joke around. There are clearly only 3. Su Yang and Su Qi from Inding City and Zhou Yi from Yeyang City. There are only 3 in total. How can there be 4? Ouyang Yateo suddenly laughed dryly with a strange expression on his face. Because the 4th person is me, Zhuowen. A wide smile suddenly bloomed on Zhuowen's face. At the same time, a wave of mental energy suddenly surged out from his body like a tidal wave. Boom! The powerful mental energy swept out in all directions like a monstrous wave. The power almost froze the air on the 3rd floor. Even the mental energy pressure that covered the entire 3rd floor retreated like an obedient puppy after Zhuowen fully unleashed his advanced grade 3 mental energy. The mental energy pressure on the entire 3rd floor retreated under the effect of Zhuowen's mental energy. In an instant, the seemingly solid pressure on the 3rd floor disappeared without a trace. Why did the surrounding mental energy pressure disappear? And this mental energy that suddenly appeared, what is it? Damn, this mental energy is so powerful. It even dispelled the mental energy pressure on the 3rd floor. I'm afraid this mental energy has already reached the advanced grade 3 Arcanist level. Advanced grade 3 Arcanist level? Only Su Yang, Zhou Yi, and Su Qi are advanced grade 3 Arcanists in this Arcana ceremony. However, I've seen these 3 people enter the higher levels of the spiritual curse tower. It's unlikely that they're on the 3rd floor. The few Arcanists who were seated on the 3rd floor all opened their eyes at the same time as the mental power erupted. Their eyes were filled with confusion and shock, and the place immediately fell into a hubbub. At the same time, these people gathered their gazes on the source of the powerful mental energy. When they saw the slender figure of the young man, the scene became rather strange and quiet for a moment. This silence only lasted for a moment before it was filled with voices of disbelief. Everyone's eyes revealed a trace of surprise and disbelief because the owner of the mental energy was a young man of 17 or 18 years old. This young man was Zhuowen, who was in the limelight in the 2nd stage. It's actually Zhuowen. Wasn't he only at the initial grade 3 Arcanist level in the 2nd stage? How did his mental energy improve in the blink of an eye and reach the advanced grade 3 Arcanist level? Looks like we've underestimated Zhuowen. I'm afraid he's very likely to be the dark horse of this Arcana ceremony this time. He's younger than Su Yang, but his strength isn't any weaker than the former. Moreover, his body has a powerful earthly fire like the 9 heavens thunder inferno. When the surrounding exclamations and noises exploded in an instant, Ouyang Yateo, who was standing in front of Zhuowen, was completely stunned. His pupils shrank as he stared blankly at the young man in front of him and the powerful tide-like mental energy that almost flooded the entire 3rd floor. Zhuowen, you're actually an advanced grade 3 Arcanist? Could it be that you didn't use your full strength in the 2nd stage? Ouyang Yateo suddenly felt that his throat was a little dry. In the end, he smiled bitterly and said, "Now you know why I'm confident that I'll be the champion of this Arcana ceremony, right? So you can rest assured that the champion of this Arcana ceremony will never fall into the hands of Inding City or Yiyang City." Patting Ouyang Yateo's shoulder, Zhuowen smiled slightly. The mental energy in his body was immediately withdrawn into his Naiwen Palace. After that, he greeted Ouyang Yateo and directly rushed toward the stairs leading to the 4th floor. Chapter 286. The 4th level. On the 4th level of the Spirit Curse Tower, heavy footsteps slowly drifted out like the panting of an old bull. The area of the fourth level was extremely large. However, there were only 6 figures in this spacious area. They were slowly walking with heavy footsteps towards the center of the fourth level. There was a staircase that looked like a tombstone standing there. Among the 6 figures, the one closest to the steps was a young man with an indifferent expression and a trace of arrogance between his brows. This person was Su Yang from An City. At this moment, Su Yang had his hands behind his back as he slowly walked towards the center of the steps as if he was taking a stroll. There was not a trace of fatigue on his face. Not far behind Su Yang was Zhou Yi from Yiyang City. Zhou Yi's expression was rather relaxed as he followed closely behind Su Yang. Behind them were Su Qi and Xuanai. Su Qi's pretty face did not seem to be burdened, but Xuanai was drenched in sweat. Her pretty face was pale and her footsteps seemed rather heavy. The 2 people not far behind the 2 girls were the other 2 disciples sent by Yiyang City. They should be Zhou Yi's junior brothers and their strength was at the initial stage of grade 3. Their complexions were even worse than Xuanai's. Clearly, their strength was weaker than Xuanai's. Although the 2 of them and Xuanai's mental energy were both at the initial stage of grade 3, Xuanai's mental energy had already reached the peak of the initial stage of grade 3. She was only half a step away from reaching the advanced stage of grade 3. Naturally, she was much stronger than the 2 people sent by Yiyang City. I say, Miss Xuanai, you don't have to struggle anymore. The mental energy pressure on the 4th level of the Spirit Curse Tower is not weaker than that of an initial stage of grade 3 Arcana Master. With your strength, it will be difficult for you to walk on this level. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to pass the 4th level. Su Qi cast a sidelong glance at the sweaty figure behind her. Her red lips curled up as she laughed mockingly. Xuanai bit her lower lip and coldly glanced at Su Qi. Then, she ignored her and continued to walk forward step by step. Her expression was focused and persistent. Don't you know your own limits? So what if you pass the 4th level? With your initial 3rd rank strength, do you think you can reach the 8th level? Su Qi coldly snorted when she saw that Shui ignored her. Under the powerful mental pressure of the 4th floor, Xuanai's footsteps became even heavier, but she still gritted her teeth and continued forward. It's not the last moment yet. Are you so sure that your Ding City will win the championship of this Arcana ceremony? As she walked with heavy steps, Xuanai glanced coldly at Su Qi and said indifferently. Oh? Don't tell me you're still harboring the thought of getting lucky? With the current strength of your Broken Rock City, do you think there is anyone who can stand shoulder to shoulder with our Ding City? Even you, the number 1 disciple of Broken Rock City, are only at the advanced 3rd grade. You can't even compare to me, let alone my big brother. The sarcasm on Su Qi's pretty face intensified as her tone became heavier. Do you really think that your brother Su Yang is invincible? In the 2nd round, the crystals he refined were not as good as Zhuowen's. Moreover, Zhuowen is much younger than your brother. Therefore, in terms of talent, your brother is not as good as Zhuowen. If Zhuowen was the same age as your brother, his strength would have surpassed your brother long ago. Xuanai's heart was filled with anger at Su Qi's unbridled ridicule and could not help but retort. Su Qi's expression changed. Xuanai was right. For Su Yang, who was the strongest among everyone, the quality of the broken seal crystal refined in the 2nd round was actually worse than Zhuowen, who was only at the initial 3rd grade. This matter was naturally fresh in her memory. What a sharp-tongued girl. That Zhuowen's talent is indeed not bad, but his strength is only at the initial 3rd grade after all. His strength is not much higher than yours. What do you think that guy can do in this spiritual spell tower? I'm afraid he can only watch us climb up the tower step by step. Su Qi sneered. Buzz. At this moment, Su Yang, who was at the front, had already reached the center step of the 4th floor. Su Yang turned his head slightly and looked around. When he did not find Zhuowen's figure, he sneered, with that guy's strength, it should be more than enough to ascend to the 4th floor. However, if he still hasn't come, I'm afraid he won't dare to come. Brother Su, could it be that you're waiting for Zhuowen? Zhou Yi, who was behind him, also caught up. When he saw Su Yang, who was in front, looking behind him as if he was looking for something, he asked with a faint smile. Hee hee. That kid's attitude outside the spiritual spell tower was rather arrogant. I originally wanted to teach that brat a lesson on the 4th floor, but I didn't expect that he still hasn't come up. I'm afraid he doesn't dare to come up. However, since he doesn't dare to come up, forget it. To me, that Zhuowen is just a clown. Su Yang placed his hands behind his back, his handsome face filled with arrogance. That kid's performance in the previous 2 rounds was rather dazzling. Even in the 2nd round, he overshadowed you, brother Su Yang. You're just angry and want to teach that Zhuowen a lesson. Zhou Yi glanced at Su Yang and sneered. Brother Zhou Yi, you're really talkative today. Since that Zhuowen still doesn't dare to come up, I don't need to waste any more time here. In this Arcana ceremony, you're the only troublesome opponent. As long as I can surpass you, the champion of this Arcana ceremony will be mine. After taking a deep look at Zhou Yi, Su Yang directly took a step forward and stepped onto the stairs. Then, with a few clean steps, he reached the top and disappeared from everyone's sight. Looking at Su Yang's disappearing figure, Zhou Yi narrowed his eyes. There was a trace of battle intent in the depths of his eyes. With a hearty laugh, he also directly entered the 5th floor. Number 1 genius of Broken Rock City, I won't accompany you any longer. You can slowly persevere on the 4th floor. Seeing that both Su Yang and Zhou Yi had entered the 5th floor, Su Qi was not to be outdone. He glanced at Xue Nai indifferently and increased his speed. Not long after, Su Qi also arrived in front of the stairs. Without the slightest reluctance, Su Qi directly raised her leg and directly braved the intense mental energy pressure on the stairs. She bravely stepped up, and soon, her beautiful figure disappeared at the entrance of the stairs to the 4th level. Looking at the 3 people who had disappeared on the stairs, Xue Nai bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. Her pretty face was filled with unwillingness. She was very unwilling. She was unwilling to accept that her strength was so weak. She was unwilling to accept that the champion of this Arcana ceremony was snatched by another city. She was unwilling to accept that none of the top 3 arcanists from Broken Rock City had a spot. The unwillingness in her heart continuously brewed and finally turned into grievance. Xue Nai's cold and beautiful eyes were now filled with a delicate expression. The mist in her eyes also became denser and denser, almost dripping down. It's not time to give up yet. I have to at least pass through the 4th floor and reach the 5th floor. Master has placed too much hope on me. I can't let him down. Gently wiping her slightly red eyes, a trace of determination once again burst forth from Xue Nai's eyes. Thud thud thud. Step by step, Xue Nai pouted and gritted her teeth. She hardened her heart and finally reached the top of the stairs. There were a total of 10 stairs to the 5th floor. The closer one was to the 5th floor, the stronger the mental energy pressure. Feeling the powerful mental energy pressure transmitted from the stairs, Xue Nai's pretty face once again paled. Her delicate body continuously bent her knees under the pressure, almost kneeling on the ground. I must go up. Her pretty face was filled with stubbornness. Finally, Xue Nai took a step forward. With a buzzing sound, the countless mental energy pressure on the stairs was like an explosion in the air as it ruthlessly pressed towards Xue Nai. The powerful force caused Xue Nai's extended foot to stop in midair. Step over. Xue Nai's eyes shrunk. The mental energy in her Naiwen palace poured out without any regard for her life. She actually forcefully suppressed the mental energy pressure on the first step. Thud. 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 As though she had fallen into a swamp, Xue Nai took one step at a time along the stairs with great difficulty. She continued to climb upwards. Her delicate body forcefully endured the enormous mental energy pressure on the stairs that grew stronger and stronger. In the end, Xue Nai directly climbed up to the 9th step. As long as she passed through the 10th step, she would be able to directly enter the 5th floor. You must succeed. Clenching her teeth, Xuanai suddenly took a step forward and directly walked towards the 10th step. Buzz! An intense buzzing sound suddenly sounded. Following which, a tornado-like mental energy pressure swept over from all directions. It was like countless tidal waves that directly surged towards Xuanai one after another. Ugh! The powerful mental energy pressure was like a heavy hammer as it ruthlessly struck Xuanai's chest, causing her to directly spit out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, her body was like a rock that was sent flying as it directly flew backwards. I can't step over, looks like our broken rock city really has no hope for this arcane ceremony. In midair, the corners of Xuanai's mouth revealed a bitter smile as she muttered to herself. Then, she slowly closed her eyes. You haven't lost yet. Suddenly, a clear voice slowly sounded in the 4th level. After which, a figure swiftly rushed forward. With a gentle shake of his right hand, a powerful mental energy directly surged out. It actually transformed into a huge palm and directly caught Xuanai, who was flying backwards, in the palm of his hand. Xuanai only felt a gentle power gently acting on her back. Soon after, she discovered that her body that was flying backwards had stopped at this moment. After stabilizing her body, Xuanai suddenly turned her head and looked over. She saw a slender figure slowly walking over from the entrance of the 4th floor with a calm expression. At the same time, an extremely powerful mental energy surrounded this figure. It was like countless hurricanes were surrounding him. The mental energy pressure from the 4th floor was unable to seep in. Chapter 287. The 5th floor. Zhuowen, you're actually an advanced grade 3 Arcana Master. You've been hiding your strength all this time. Xuanai's mouth was slightly agape as she involuntarily exclaimed. You can say that. Leave the rest to me. With your current strength, entering the 5th floor is a little too difficult. Zhuowen glanced at Xuanai as he smiled faintly. Looking at the calm young man in front of her, Xuanai's pretty face revealed a bitter smile. Looks like she really misjudged him back then. The young man in front of her, whom she did not take seriously at the beginning, actually possessed mental energy that surpassed hers. This was something she did not expect. Gritting her teeth, Xuanai nodded and said, yes. You have to be careful. Su Yang, Su Qi, and Zhou Yi are not easy to deal with. Also, Broken Rock City is really relying on you this time. I hope you don't lose. Don't worry. I came to participate in the Arcana ceremony this time for the grade 4 Yuan array. Even if you don't say it, I won't lose. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen's lips curled into an arc. Following which, he stomped his foot and directly walked towards the stairs. With Zhuowen's advanced grade 3 mental energy, the pressure of the 4th floor did not affect him at all. Hence, Zhuowen took a few steps and directly crossed the 10th step to enter the 5th floor. Staring at the figure that instantly disappeared on the stairs, Xuanai's eyes were filled with a complicated expression. In the end, she sighed softly and muttered to herself, this time, it's all up to you, Zhuowen. Outside the arena, everyone in the VIP seats cast their gazes towards the Soul Spell Tower in the center of the training grounds. At this moment, the surface of the Soul Spell Tower was densely packed with dazzling light dots, as if they were stars in the night sky, constantly flickering. If one took a closer look, they would see similar dots of light on every floor of the Curse's tower. These dots of light represented the number of people in the tower. There were 60 Arcana Masters who had entered the Curse's tower, so these dots of light added up to 60 people. The 2nd floor had the highest number of dots, accounting for almost 80% of the total number of dots. Clearly, most of the Arcanists were stuck on the 2nd floor, while the 3rd and 4th floors had even fewer. The 4th floor had 6 dots of light. Ouyang Yuntu stared at the specks of light above the Soul Curse Tower and whispered with a smile, these little fellows are quite fast. 6 of them have already reached the 4th floor. As soon as Ouyang Yuntu finished speaking, 3 dots of light on the 4th floor of the Spirit Curse Tower disappeared. Then, 3 dots of light appeared on the 5th floor. Clearly, 3 people had entered the 5th floor. Yang Yuntu frowned as he muttered to himself, "They're really fast. It's only been a short while, but 3 people have already entered the 5th level. Those 3 specks of light should be Yeyang City's Zhou Yi and An City's Su siblings. Only these 3 advanced rank 3 Arcana Masters are able to pass through the 4th floor so easily." Master Kuya frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "I wonder if Xuanai and Zhuowen will be able to successfully reach the 5th floor. The mental pressure on the 4th floor is still somewhat threatening to an initial rank 3 Arcana Master." Yang Yuntu frowned slightly and said with some worry. As for Cho Cho, he sat in his seat without saying a word. His face was as calm as water, but his gaze was fixed on the Soul Curse Tower in the distance. He believed that Zhuowen wasn't simple, which was why he had so easily agreed to Master Huiyun's bet. "Zhuowen, you better buck up. This time, this old man's bet is a little too big." Chiu Chao's eyes narrowed as he muttered to himself in an almost inaudible voice. When Master Huiyun, who was sitting in the back row, saw the 3 specks of light on the 5th floor, the corners of his mouth curved into a proud smile. He muttered in a low voice, "This Cho Cho is really too confident. He clearly knows that An City has 2 advanced rank 3 Arcana Masters participating this time, yet he dares to make a bet with me. Is he relying on Zhuowen, who is only at the initial rank 3 Arcana Masters? The Arcana Masters of Broken Rock City are nothing to be afraid of. You can only blame Cho Cho for trusting Zhuowen too much. Think about it, that kid is only at the initial rank 3 Arcana Master. No matter how heaven-defying he is, it's not very likely that he can defeat an advanced rank 3 Arcana Master." Master Hanyun, who was beside Master Huiyun, sneered. As soon as Master Hanyun's words left his mouth, an uproar arose in the VIP seats. "Another person has entered the 5th floor." This uproar caused Master Hanyun and Master Huiyun to turn their heads. Their gazes converged on the Soul Curse Tower. When they saw that there were 4 specks of light on the 5th floor, their pupils abruptly shrank. "There's actually someone who can enter the 5th floor? Who is this person? Could it be Zhuowen?" Master Hanyun frowned and said with some surprise. Master Huiyun's expression was rather unsightly. He didn't expect that there would be someone else who had the strength to enter the 5th floor besides Su Yang, Zhou Yi, and Su Qi. Logically speaking, the mental pressure on the 5th floor shouldn't be weaker than that of an advanced rank 3 Arcana Master. Zhuowen and Xuanai were merely at the initial rank 3 Arcana Masters. It was rather difficult to enter the 5th floor with the mental strength of an initial rank 3 Arcana Master. However, there was someone who had entered the 5th floor. Another person has entered the 5th floor. If this person isn't Xuanai, then it's Zhuowen. Yang Yuntu also noticed that there was an additional speck of light on the 5th floor of the Soul Curse Tower. His eyes flashed as he laughed loudly. It shouldn't be Xuanai. With Xuanai's mental strength, it'll be very difficult for her to reach the 5th floor. This person should be Zhuowen. Master Kuya muttered to himself. Xuanai was his personal disciple, and Master Kuya was well aware of her capabilities. "I knew that Zhuowen was extraordinary. Being able to enter the 5th floor already means that this kid's mental strength is much stronger than an ordinary initial rank 3 Arcana Master." Cho Cho, who was originally calm, suddenly laughed out loud. The mental pressure on the 5th floor of the Soul Curse Tower was extremely strong. Even the surrounding air seemed to have solidified. After reaching the 5th floor, Su Yang and the other 2 were no longer as relaxed as they were on the 4th floor. Among them, Su Yang and Zhou Yi frowned slightly. However, they still walked forward with their heads held high. However, their speed was much slower, as if they were taking a stroll. As for Su Qi, who was slightly weaker, her speed was much slower than the other 2. Although she could still walk, it was rather strenuous for her. It was obvious that the pressure on the 5th floor was a clear hindrance to Su Qi. "Little sister. How do you feel?" Su Yang also noticed Su Qi's condition. He stopped slightly and asked with a frown. "It's all right. Big brother, you go first. I can still hold on." If you can become the champion of the Arcana ceremony this time, you will be able to obtain the rank for Yuan array. That thing is incomparably important to you. Su Qi's pretty face was slightly pale, but she still smiled at Su Yang. Brother and sister are really close. However, that rank for Yuan array does not necessarily belong to your brother. It should belong to me, Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi slowly walked forward and coldly smiled. Su Yang nodded at Su Qi. Then, he coldly glanced at Zhou Yi and indifferently said, Brother Zhou Yi, are you really so confident that you can become the champion this time? However, I can regretfully tell you that you have no chance at all. No chance at all? Brother Su, your words are too full of yourself. There is not much difference between our strengths. How can I not have a chance? Zhou Yi sneered. However, the smile on Zhou Yi's face quickly froze. This was because an extremely powerful mental strength suddenly surged out from Su Yang's body. This mental strength far surpassed Zhou Yi's own. This mental strength? What the hell, Su Yang, you actually made a breakthrough. After regaining his senses, Zhou Yi's cheeks flushed red as he could not help but exclaim. I was lucky enough to make a breakthrough a month ago. Brother Zhou Yi, do you think that with your rank 3 advanced mental strength, you have the qualifications to compete with me for the rank 4 Yuan array? Su Yang disdainfully glanced at Zhou Yi. Then, he took large strides and directly rushed towards the stairs in the corner. His perfect third-grade mental strength surged out and immediately suppressed the mental strength pressure on the stairs. Then, Su Yang unceremoniously left the 5th floor and entered the 6th floor. Damn it! Damn it! Su Yang actually made a breakthrough. Zhou Yi was stunned for half a second. Then, he angrily stomped his foot and fiercely cursed. Su Qi, who was behind Zhou Yi, coldly smiled and said rather mockingly, I've already said that the champion of this arcane ceremony will definitely be my big brother, Su Yang. You have no chance at all. Looking at the mocking smile on Su Qi's pretty face, Zhou Yi's expression became even uglier. At the same time, he sighed in his heart. He knew that since Su Yang's mental strength had already advanced to the level of a perfect 3rd grade, there was no doubt that he would be the champion of this arcane ceremony. Your City Arcane Guild has really hidden your strength well. In the past, you've always been quiet. I didn't expect you to have 2 disciples at the level of a perfect 3rd grade. Moreover, Su Yang has even reached the level of a perfect 3rd grade. But forget it. Against Su Yang, who is at the level of a perfect 3rd grade, I have no chance of winning at all. I'll just stay on this floor and absorb the power of comprehension inside. Zhou Yi sighed. After knowing that he had no chance of winning, Zhou Yi appeared somewhat dejected. Then, he directly sat cross-legged on the ground and simply began to cultivate. Buzz! At this moment, a fluctuation suddenly transmitted from the entrance of the 5th floor. This fluctuation was like a ripple in the water, spreading in all directions and immediately attracted the attention of Zhou Yi and Su Qi. This fluctuation? Could it be that someone else has entered the 5th floor? Su Qi was the first to react. Then, she realized something and suddenly looked toward the entrance. Zhou Yi was obviously attracted by this fluctuation. He frowned slightly, twisted his neck, and cast his gaze toward the entrance of the 5th floor. A slender figure slowly stepped out from the entrance. His body was tightly wrapped by a hurricane-like mental strength. As soon as this figure appeared at the entrance, he looked around and began to size up the surrounding environment. Zhuowen? How is that possible? He's just a 3rd grade lower stage arcanist. How did he enter the 5th floor? After seeing the figure clearly, Su Qi's beautiful eyes shrank and she could not help but exclaim. No, what a powerful mental strength. This mental strength has already reached the level of a 3rd grade upper stage. This Zhuowen is actually a 3rd grade upper stage arcanist. Zhou Yi's eyes were sharp. At a glance, he sensed the powerful mental strength on Zhuowen's body. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.